All right, let's try this again because last time I forgot to hit go live and what was a really good conversation going on there. All right, second time's the charm. Doing a full recap of this year, both NHRA and the drag racing community. We're gonna have more people showing up hopefully later. I guess that's the one bright side of the fact that I messed up is now we have more time for other guys to get in here later on in the stream that you'll meet. But who we do got here now on the top here along with me, we got Kellen Haddock from Haddock Automotive, who runs a really good YouTube channel over on his side where he documents what goes on in the world of drag racing through his eyes. We got Diecastreviws, aka Brody. If you've ever seen the photos that I have posted on Twitter that have the Mighty Mac watermark, those are all his photos that he took at the U.S. Nationals. He is basically our photographer, which is really cool to say. And then also who we have with us is the driver who made his debut the same weekend we did, driving a top fuel dragster for Larry Dixon Motorsport, that being the man, Will Smith. All right, so you told me, guys, first off, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, that's all coming up. Now, you told me how your Christmas was. Now you get to tell the folks at home. So tell us, what did you guys do this season?
Well, I started out with the craziest travel story you would not believe the things we went through trying to get me to Texas to spend Christmas with my family. But when I finally got here, I got to spend time with my entire family, spend it with here in Texas, and it was just a nice day getting to relax and not work, and just a nice day overall, getting to spend time with family and all that stuff.
All right, how about you? What were you up to?
Well, I enjoyed some time with the family, doing Christmas things and whatnot. So that was cool. But there's not much of an off season, So I spent
about that, yeah.
I spent a lot of time this week, before and after we did our Christmas stuff together as a family. I've been working on the PDRA stuff, getting contracts ready to send out next week for sponsors, and then always working to try to find more funding to go top fuel racing. And I've got my 10.5 Mustang that I have, and I decided why not rewire it? So I started rewiring it a week ago. Actually, just finished it up a little while ago. So all things race cars here, man.
Yeah,
absolutely. And then Brody, what were you up to this Christmas?
The obligatory family stuff. I had a good time. That was nice to see some people caught up and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. We had the Christmas over at my mom's side of the house. We went over to my aunt's. They had this ridiculous 5-course meal set up, and then we had to go enjoy that roast. And then I ended up winning the Skippo game, so I guess I'm the Skippo champion for the year. All right. So just like we talked about earlier, so Will, we talked about how it was for you to get that debut at Indianapolis. The question I did want to ask is, so going into Q1, just want you to remember this, because the fact you got now the hindsight to look back on that weekend. So Q1 is nighttime in Indianapolis. Grandstands are packed. You're sitting in the dragster. You're one of the first pairs to go out for top fuel. Just kind of take me through that emotion, because you talked about off stream what it was like to achieve that 30-year journey. What was it like when you were sitting in the car, staring down that racetrack and realizing that it was about to happen?
I don't think it really came together as far as what, like, the full expectation until I pre-staged and got ready to pull on the high side. And it's like, man, this is Indy. This is Q1. This is, first car down the track type thing, I'm like, all day, we had the car prepared, ready, and, I'm talking with people. You and I had an interview, and just was so busy during the day. And then you go to the staging lanes, and then it's like, okay, this is about to happen, and then, but I've got 155 laps in an A fuel car. And, as far as running in front of the crowd and being out there, to me, that wasn't a big deal, maybe it should have been, maybe not, but that part didn't bother me. But it's like, man, I was so focused on the task at hand that I didn't really think about nothing else. And I think that's the way you have to approach it, and we made a good lap, it was straight down the track, and I'm like, wow, that's, a nice hit to start with, so the emotions, I think it really hit me like when they, after Funny Cars had run and, we were the first car down the track and they start pushing us up and Larry leans in and, we have our little chit chat and fist bump. And it's like, wow, I'm sitting under the arch here at Indy and I'm driving Larry Dixon's car. And like, and we were really, really good friends. I love the guy to death, but it's like, that's when it started to kind of sink in. And then as soon as the engine starts, it's just like every other run you've ever made in a car, and I think I personally think that's the way you have to approach it, because people have asked me like, how nervous were you? And I'm like, zero. Like, it was just like tying your shoes, like I was ready for it, and I just hoped I did execute it properly as a driver and got the car from point A to point B the straightest and best I could, and there was a few mistakes I made, and like I said in the interview afterwards, I'm planning to do a better job the next day, but that was my third run in a car in Top Fuel. So it's not like we had, tested and ran 20 runs, before we made that pass. That was the third full pass. So we were happy,
I agree. You can't be like, when I was getting in to start driving this car, the one thing that Dad stressed to me almost more than anything was, you can't be worried about what everybody else is doing. You got to be focused in on what you're doing. You got to focus on doing your job as the driver, which I agree with 100%. You can't let all the distractions of the world come in and interrupt your focus when you're handling a 11,000 horsepower race car.
It's a dangerous machine, like, I mean, you can't afford not to not pay attention and have your full, being fully focused on it. And I've learned the older I've gotten and more experienced I've got, like, you can't worry about what anybody says. If you take the time to worry about something or care what anybody else is doing, you're taking time away from the task you have to do that you're supposed to be focused on. And that's, as I've gotten more experience over the years, that's something I've gotten better with, that I just don't worry about it. We're up there to do a job, and whether it's the guy that's starting the engine or the guy that's scrubbing the tires, before you pre-stage, or the guy in the seat, we all have a job, and that's what our, full focus should be on.
And this season pretty good. I don't know if you talk about the funny car that's sitting back there behind McKellen, but the thing I want to talk about too is, so you talk about how the nerds get in there and all the animosity going up to that event. They're a little bit added more because it was a bit unintentional. So you guys rolled in there, and I took a picture of the trailer as you guys were parking and posted on Twitter. I got a DM from Nikki, who is your guys' PR person. Mm-hmm. And she told me, hey, if they unload it with the panels on the car, don't post a picture. And she hyped it up as this big reveal. And you're like, there is no reveal. You guys just kind of hit it. And then as soon as you were finished about to roll the car out, you took that out. What was that all about? And what was it like when you had all this hype going up to put this panel on the car, even though it turned out there wasn't really one to begin with?
What was really cool about that was I had went up to the shop to help Larry, finish up a few things on the car before the race, earlier in the week. And I didn't even know what the car was going to be wrapped like. And he had every intention to hide that from me until we were there at the track. Problem was, I came up a couple of days early, and like I said, I wanted to, help him get things ready and whatnot. So he didn't argue that. And then when the graphics guys come start applying it, it's funny because when they laid the when it come out black and yellow, Larry's like, you know what this is? And I was like, I just kind of looked, and he was like, come on, you know what this is. And I didn't tell him what I thought it was, but the next layer they put on it, I was like, oh yeah, okay, I get it now, and I just thought that was the most like coolest thing, because the MGD car, which was his rookie car in '95, in which he went to Indy and won Indy with it, that was one of my favorite Top Fuel cars of all time. And the fact that he, put this wrap on this car and did it for this reason, and, wanted to do a throwback, and, being a rookie, it's like, hey, let's go back with the same scheme, when he was a rookie. So then I'm thinking, like, wow, there is a lot of pressure here, you know. I mean, that didn't get to me at all. Like, but at the same time, it's like, man, like, okay, he gave me this scheme, and we've got good parts here and a lot of knowledge, and it's like, okay, let's go win Indy, you know. So it was
the emotions of everybody around you doing it is so big. Like someone doing something special like that, that's the biggest part that kind of humbles you when you're driving.
For sure. Like the response that we received from the car looking like that from, you know, other teams, other racers, fans, media, just everybody was like, and it's like, I think about it from this standpoint. If I, you know, never get in a Top Fuel car ever again, which that's not my plan, and Lord willing, I'll be out there in 23. But having that one shot to do it,
yeah,
and the fact that Larry did, you know, wanted to bring out this scheme and do a throwback, like it was so special to me. Like it couldn't have been any better. So it was a very humbling experience to drive for Larry Dixon and have a car that represented his past. I mean, Larry's got one of the best, you know, track records of anyone in Top Fuel. You know, he's up there with the best of them. You know, so to have that connection to him when I was a young kid, when I was 5 years old, watching that car, you know, like it was just cool, you know. And the good Lord above bless me with this opportunity to do it with him and that experience, and man, it was just cool. That's about the only word I could put with it, you know.
That's a pretty apt descriptive word for all the Nitro cars. Is just cool.
Oh. Well, the one I always say is bitching, you know, and it was real bitching. It really was. So, but yeah.
I'm trying to find this one picture. It might be on the SD card. I want to take it back to that because I remember it was Q1, funny cars trying to roll out, and then I see this picture of I think it was Larry posted on Twitter of the car as it's being unveiled, and as soon as that picture came out, there were still funny cars going on. I stopped immediately what I was doing and just stared at that. And I had David Lando sitting right next to me. We looked at that. He's poking. He was like, "What?" He looks over, sees the car. We're both sitting there. It's like, pain of the weekend. That just stole everything. Originally, It was a fight between Jim Campbell's Blaze exhaust car and I cannot remember the guy's name. The Psycho Cuda from the Hemi Challenger.
Yeah.
Those two cars are fantastic. But as soon as that car was unveiled on Twitter, that immediately took it. And then as soon as you were rolling out with that car, it stole the entire show. Yeah. From everybody who was on there. All eyes were put on that car, and it stole for the entire weekend. And it is still pretty much, I think, regarded as pain of the year. Just what is your reception like for that? Because you talked about how it was, but just when you realized how fans receptive that car, what was it like for you? And even after the fact, because you just got a framed picture, by the way, from PRI. I saw that, by the way. You got that framed picture of that massive portrait of your car. Just what is it like having that and having the fans almost have the most memorable ride from that year?
I tell you, I think the coolest part, the fans loved it. You know, it's been 5 years since Larry has been out there, you know, racing in Top Fuel. So, and this was the first time for him to be not in the seat, you know, be in a team owner role, you know, position. And so that I know was a cool experience from him. And, you know, it's cool to see all the fans come over and want Larry's autograph, and great to see him back out there. You know, it's really cool. But I'll tell you, when we towed the car up to the staging lane, to me and my best friend Brian Inouye were sitting in the back of the van, and you know, we were talking about how cool the car looked. I mean, just everything about it was like, man, this thing's so cool. And Brian has an appreciation for the history of our sport in every way that I do. I mean, we're a clone of each other. We're brothers from another mother. But anyway, when we were going to the staging lanes, you could see other crew guys with other teams that were obviously paired behind us. We're waiting till, you know, you wait till the certain guys pull out and then you pull out, and that way everybody's somewhat in line when they get up to the staging lane. So some of the other teams, they were watching him when we were towing by. You could see him pointing and oohing and ahhing, you know, and I think that was really cool because a lot of the crew guys were, they knew what they looked at it and they knew exactly what it was, and I'm sure there were some casual fans there that had no idea, it was Rick Fisher Honda and the band of brothers on there, which is cool. But the ones that knew, the response we got, it was really cool. And I'll tell you, Larry, like even our crew guys didn't even know what the car was going to look like. And once again, like, Brian Inouye was helping me out for the weekend. He's my ride or die. And he was with me when we were together at Harada's, and he was always suiting me up and everything. And he told me, he's like, hey, what's the car look like? And I'm like, I swore to Larry I wouldn't say nothing, because Larry told me, he's like, hey, it's between us. So I was like, okay, my word's good, And I remember the first panel that comes out that Larry puts on the car, and then he brings the other one, and I could see Brian, and Brian was just sitting back, and he had this big grin on his face, And he's like, oh, he said, is that the MGD car? I said, yes. And he was like, oh, that's so awesome. So me and Brian always said we were going to make it to the big show, together somehow, and to do it with Larry, and then have this car. I mean, it was a special moment for us all, for sure.
And then we also have some comments coming in too. What the next one should be. I don't know if there is plans that maybe this is an annual tradition to try and make maybe a throwback weekend possible by forcing it on there. But we have one. Personally, I'm with this too, because I think I've seen pictures of you back when you were at Al Navi.
Yeah.
This is an idea that I like, bringing back one of those gorgeous Navi cars. But obviously, Dave, being one of the more older folks, thinks maybe you should just keep the Miller throwbacks going on with the blue and silver one. I actually have one of it's right in front of there. It's stuck under the TV. I'm not going to move it. Of the snakeskin car that he ran with Prudhomme for the 40th anniversary. Is there any possibility that we might, if you do get that Top Fuel ride for hopefully Indy again, that we might see maybe another throwback be put out there?
It's quite possible. I will say we haven't discussed it, but anyone that knows me and has followed me over the years, I mean, I'm all about that. I think it's cool. And I have one of the coolest ideas, one of the coolest deals I'm working on right now, and it just hadn't come together yet. But talk about throwback. It would beat all throwbacks that have ever happened. But I'm going to keep plugging away at it, keep working on it. But needless to say, Larry and I talked about, like NASCAR did the whole throwback thing, and that's kind of where he got that idea from. And I wouldn't consider myself, I mean, I'm not as knowledgeable as Brian Lones and Brett Kepner and those guys are, but I would consider myself a drag race historian. I mean, it's what I know and love, and I know a lot about the history and everything. I would love to be a part of that. I think our sport needs to do that. Those are the days that influenced me to love NHRA drag racing as I have. And there was, I mean, just the people and the paint schemes and the companies that were sponsors back then, and just everything about it. That's like, it was different then than it is now. Not saying it's bad in any means. I'm just saying it's different, but those are the days that, like I say, I wouldn't consider myself an old guy, but like growing up, I'm an old soul, and, like when I was with Harada's and we did the throwback car with all the different body panels on, man, we got a lot of, publicity out of that thing, and seeing the people come by that was trying to guess all the panels, it was really cool, predominantly on that car, everything was 60s, 70s, and there was a couple of 90s cars on there, but it's like, I want to see some people do some throwback of the 80s. I think the 80s was one of the best decades of all forms of racing, NASCAR, NHRA, everything. So
NHRA needs like a yearly throwback race. Like since I saw Krista Baldwin do that throwback to her dad, I always
that was a beautiful car. Yeah,
that was cool.
Someday when I'm driving, hopefully in the big leagues, that Dad's 2008. It was the 2004 Made in America Tour car that he had. That was the red, white, and blue Barrett car. That is the one that has always been so cool. He's got a die cast of it. That's been my favorite car. I always thought that someday I'd like to do a throwback race where I wrap my car like that and go out and surprise everybody and blow the world away.
Drag Racing Central's brought it up. We're in a group chat with a lot of the content creators, and Drag Racing Central, along with me, has been a big advocate for that idea. He thinks that, he's in the chat, so obviously correct me if I'm wrong. He said it was Maple Grove, and I said, no, that's just because you're saying that because you're there. I'm saying Maple Grove isn't a bad idea, but I'm thinking if you're going to do a throwback weekend, I could see Gainesville, I could see maybe the Winter Nationals, and Indy being possible.
I think it would need to be Indy.
It's almost guaranteed Indy. Like, it's such an easy idea, but it's like with how much history that track has, like there's no way that there shouldn't be at least one. But again, there's like 5 tracks that have as much history alongside that could stand with Indy as a crown jewel event that could easily replace it. But it's like there's so many ideas
alternate it from year to year. You know, do Indy one year, do Gainesville. You know, like do history of. I mean, there's so much history at all those different venues. You know what we did the other year with Haradas. We did we wore all white at Indy. You know, we had some throwback shirts made, wore the white pants, and I was kind of bummed out because I wasn't able to be on the starting line with them wearing the white. You know, but anyway, that was really cool. You know, a lot of people dig that, and I think it's something NHRA should jump all over.
Yeah, there's so much history within drag racing, within all the cars. Like, take for something as little as the chassis for my car is the chassis Dad won the championship in. Like, there's so much history within every single team, with Larry, with THR, with JFR, with all these different teams, that there's some really cool things that most people don't know about.
Yeah. I will say this, and I got to say this for a moment. All the people I have worked for or driven for, or been affiliated with, have been heroes of mine from when I was a young kid. You know, and I'm not saying this to boast. I'm saying this out of all appreciation for the opportunity I've had to work with people. But I've been able to work with Steve Johnson. I was a big fan of Steve's before he even moved to Alabama, when he was in California and he was roommates with Larry Dixon. You know, he was the first guy I started working for. And then I worked for Shannon Jenkins and Mike Castellano for about 10 years. And, you know, and through the Alan Abbey deal, you know, got to work with Ricky Smith some and you know, like driving for the Haradas. I mean, that's a famed name in drag racing, you know, we're, you know, legendary name, and now I'm driving for Larry, and it's like I'd love to hear people like. I'm so appreciative for the opportunity I've had to work for the people I had, because I appreciate their story and their successes in drag racing, and like I said, I grew up watching these people. You know, it's like I said in our 17-minute conversation that wasn't live earlier. No, I'm just picking on you. You know, like. You know, like, I don't come from money. I don't, you know, it's all just been, hey, go knock on somebody's door and want to go work for them. You know, the conversation I talked to Steve, you know, talk about Steve Johnson a lot. I mean, I talked to him at the Gator Nationals in 2004. A year later in 2005, me, my mom, and dad are taking his $45,000 engine at that time in the backseat of our Nissan Altima from Birmingham, Alabama down to Gainesville, because he didn't want to ship it down there. So I'm saying what a year makes, you know? so, you know, I was working up at his shop some, but he's the reason I got in marketing to go drag racing, was, you know, because I had to find the funding to do it, you know, because I don't come from it. So anyway, with that being said, that's it's been cool to work with those type peoples, and like what Michaelin's saying, the history there. I mean, I think that's something we all have to do as race teams and people and media and the organization itself, is like
our history,
promote that history, you know, because at the end of the day, that's what brought all of us into what we're doing, you know. Like
you said, with like kind of working with your heroes, Dad always talks about how when he was a kid, he would watch these guys on TV. He would watch Don Garlitz. He would watch all these guys on TV, and back then he was a 10-year-old kid, but he was like, you know, that's what I want to do. And then he worked. He knows Garlett's. One of Dad's cars is actually in Garlett's museum. One of his dragsters is in Garlett's museum. And there's all kinds of, like, Dad's worked for so many people and met so many people throughout the sport that, like, he, like you mentioned, he has all of that history and he's worked with all of that stuff. And as I'm coming up and driving and working on the cars, I'm starting to get all of that experience and knowledge and learn from these legends, if you will.
And then I also want to talk about this too. You guys are talking about kind of, Will brought it up a lot with the youth in the sport. You talk about these people who like start out because, again, I know you're working your way up. You recently started driving one of the funny cars, but just talk about kind of the youth movement of what you guys can do to bring these guys in, because there's a lot of youth within that paddock. You look on those teams, you look who's working on those cars. There's some young guys working on there. Just kind of talk about that movement, because one of the biggest things I see, even when I look at my analytics in my videos, is that it's very skewed more towards the 50s than it is anywhere else. But it seems like a lot of that youth, rather than going to the grandstand, is going straight into working on those cars. So what's that like for you guys to see that?
Getting the youth into this sport is very, very important. Like you just mentioned the analytics. I look at the same thing, and my biggest demographic is 55 to 64 years old. And, like, not to be our fan base, if it's really the 55 to 64-year-olds that's our biggest part of our fan base, they're literally dying, which sounds terrible to say. It's not the perfect thing to say, but it's the truth. And getting kids into this sport, like, all the kids nowadays go on YouTube and they watch Cletus McFarland or PFI Speed or any of these big YouTubers, and they're out there doing Rocky Mountain Race Week or running the event isn't coming to me right now, but all these events that these big YouTubers do, that's what the kids are getting into. And like Drag Racing Central just said, no prep kings, all this stuff. We've got to get kids into this is the top level of drag racing. You don't get any bigger or faster than Top Fuel Dragsters and Nitro Funny Cars and even Pro Stock and Pro Stock Motorcycle. And we've got to figure out a way to get kids into that. And I noticed what you said about how all the kids seem to be going to the teams. Like, you've got trade schools like UNOH, where a bunch of my friends who work on the team or work on other teams have come from. And I don't have the answers of how you get the kids into the sport. I know what we're doing with the YouTube and all the social media will help. But we've got to figure out an answer somehow, because that's the future of the sport. And if we want to keep growing it and making it bigger and better, we've got to get the kids into it.
So then, well, do you have something to add? I'm sorry, I didn't know if you were trying to think of something or not.
No, I don't know what the answer is. I agree. I really don't. I wish I knew. I have, my opinions on it and whatnot, and I think I think NHRA is doing a lot better job with their social media and things, and our media teams that are out there, including yourself, are doing a fine job with, and you as well, McKellen, that are doing a great job at putting content out there and really awesome content. I saw the comment come through about, the youth. I mean, it's big over at the no prep stuff. I mean, and it is. I agree. I'm a diehard Nitro guy. I always have been. And I think anybody that has any interest in drag racing whatsoever, you take them to an NHRA race and put them behind a Top Fuel dragster or a Nitro Funny Car, I think you got a hooked fan for life. So I believe in our product. I think we have a great product. I will tell you one concern that I have is, man, I never thought I'd see the day where some of the youth turn 16 and they don't even care to get their driver's license, and I'm seeing and hearing of that more, so that's a concern that I have, and I don't really know how you fix that, but how can the youth be a big drag racing fan if they're not even a car person, and they really don't have to be a car person, but if they're not like even wanting to drive a car, it just pushes it that much farther. And I don't want to be the guy that's the negative of this conversation, but that's a struggle, and that's a big problem. I feel like, and it's like, man, I wish I knew the way to fix that, but
what the Texas Motorplex is doing with their whole Stampede of Speed. I don't know if either of you guys have gotten to be out there for it, but I got to go this year, and all of a sudden you've got Funny Car Chaos this year, and then you had concerts, and then Palmer's Nitro Sideshow. I think the concerts were a really good idea because you had all these people, these families, these kids who want to see Wade Bowen or Brett Young or whoever was out there. And then all of a sudden you're showing two Nitro Top Fuel dragsters side by side on the big screen. I think that what they're doing is helping, how they've got the whole event as like a circus of sorts or a carnival where it's a week and a half long thing, but you get to see everything, every part of drag racing, from the nostalgia car, the Funny Car Chaos, to the top of the Top Fuel dragsters and Nitro funny cars. And I think more events should start trying to incorporate that into their planning, or whatever you want to call it, getting ready for events.
And what I see, it's not like tiered per se, to where, like you got your Top Fuel and Fuel Funny, like everything, like every car that goes down the track during that time, it's part of the show, and like you got pro mods and you got fuel cars and you got all these different cars. I mean, it's kind of like, it's a drag racer's dream per se. I mean, for one thing, but it's like for someone that, I mean, there's people that are diehard pro mod people. I mean, I know that from working with PDRA, and there's diehard, Nitro people, and then the West Coast guys are a little bit different than the East Coast guys, and but I think that's a great event that they have, and they make a show out of every class of car they have there.
They do really good about that. And I think, like, you guys have probably seen all over social media, we're getting ready for the big Pro Mod race that's coming up.
World Series of Pro Mod?
Yes, that. And I like how they're like building anticipation, calling everybody and their mom and getting them in this event. I think they're doing a really good job promoting it. And NHRA, we have to give them a lot of credit because they're doing really well with the social media stuff. They've got an excellent team who I know personally. I'm sure Noah does. I'm sure Will also does. That they're doing a really good job. They produce amazing videos, all kinds of amazing content. And I think we've got to give them props where it's due because they're doing a really good job there.
Then, so it's funny that you mentioned that. Someone just joined. I want to bring him in here. Honestly, one of the more hardest working people I've met since I've been able to be a part of it. Runner of American Hot Rod Entertainment, also a video editor and kind of editor over at Competition Plus, Mr. Darren Williams. Man, welcome to the show. I'm wondering where you win. You've kind of been really quiet over in the group chat and on social media the past few weeks. What's been going on with you, man?
You gotta take a little break from social media sometimes, but thank you for having me on tonight. Glad to be on your channel finally for the first time. I'm gonna give a shout out to you, Noah, because I mean what you've done on YouTube has just been amazing over the past year with your videos. Will, seeing you make your debut on Top Fuel this year at the US Nationals was badass, man. Congrats to you. And Carrie, Michaela, Hattie, great to see you jump behind the wheel of a nostalgia funny car. I actually saw your dad race the nostalgia funny car at the California Hot Rod reunion last year. It was super cool to see. He went up against Bobby Cocho round one. Yeah, and it was really cool to see. So yeah, shout out to everybody here.
And now that all four of you here, let's kind of talk about a bit about the season because, well, a lot has happened in the season. I joined in a little bit about halfway through the season, but I was able to catch up a lot. I joined in about Topeka. This season, man, it was absolutely ridiculous. The way I viewed it, if there was a season for me to really start getting invested into the NHRA, it had to be this one. What happened at the U.S. Nationals alone, the history that was made there, the nail-biting finishes, Steve Torrance being put back on top by winning the All-Star Callout, and then going on to what Ron and Greg did alone, and then going all the way to Pomona. Just talk about what this season was like, because for an outsider that joined in, I genuinely don't know how else you could ask for a better run to a championship than what we saw this year.
All right, so let's break it down. So let's start from Pro Stock Motorcycle. You got Karen Stouffer setting the national record first race out, 668, then lowers it to a 666, right? Great battle all year long. You think Steve Johnson and Karen Stouffer's going to run away with it? Nope. Matt Smith gets it done. 6 championship, ties the great Dave Schultz for the most all time in that class. You go to Pro Stock. Greg Anderson, obviously, like you said, U.S. Nationals gets win number 100. But the story of the year was Elite Motorsports. Erica Enders dominated all year long, 10 wins. I mean, come on now. Nitro Funny Car, Robert Hight. I mean, 8 wins this season. Just came up just short of that championship. But Ron Capps, first-year team owner, first year with Toyota, the GR Supra, comes out, wins the championship. Everybody talks about Robert Hight's season, but Ron Capps had an amazing season himself. 5 wins, won the U.S. Nationals. Can't look over that at all. But how about Top Fuel Eliminator? If you go back to 1999 was one of the craziest years in Top Fuel history. It kind of reminded me of that this year. I mean, you had about 8 to 10 guys every weekend going at it. You had Antron Brown and Tony Schumacher, guys like that, out of the top 10 for most of the year in the beginning of the season. I mean, just a wild year for Top Fuel. Crazy overall. Steve Torrence gets knocked off. Brittany Force is your new champion. I can't wait till 2023, man. That's going to be exciting. Antron Brown is back now. Like, it's so cool.
We saw that live stream. I think it was the Combination Power Hour. You guys had Antron on, especially after he won the Snowbird. I think was it Snowbird Nationals? He won the promo event. Just an absolute insane event that went on down there. And you see the emotion that Antron has. He brought up Ron. Just the fact that even Ron, we talked about it at Dios Nationals. I don't know if anyone really posted a video of it, of how at the beginning of this year alone, he was almost laying on the shop floor trying to figure out, how am I going to do this? How am I going to make this work? How am I going to run this team? He thought he was a little bit in over his head. Halfway through the season, just stumped on. Even though going all the way back, he had Dodge at the beginning, lost it, joined Toyota. By the time he reached Indy, started out, was going to look the same, hit the wall, was frustrated with himself, and then sweeps the weekend and just stomps the field the rest of the year. Just, if there was a way that you could predict anything that was going to happen in the fuel categories, they were going to find a way to disprove that. Darren was talking about you never backed off with Brittany Trent. You thought Brittany was going to take that championship no matter what. And I was still on the side of like, oh, Justin Ashley going to Vegas. He had it. It was locked in. He has to do his good. And then I waited for Clay to perform all year, knocks him out round 1, takes that out of the bag. It's just any time that I thought that anything was predictable, they found a way to disprove that and just turn my head upside down. Just talk about like the unpredictability of it too, because it's just anytime you thought there was a favorite, it just went away and someone else would take that immediately.
Well, I mean, so I literally just referenced 1999, right? Have you ever seen like drag racing 99? Like literally everybody who won a race went out first round the next race, and that's literally what happened in the countdown until we went to Pomona. Like, I mean, just unpredictability, just all around. Like, it was crazy, man. And like you said, a lot of people after Justin Ashley won Dallas, they're like, Justin Ashley got a big lead. He's consistent. He's most likely going to win the championship. But Clay Millican doesn't get down the track at all in qualifying. Not at all. You get 4 sessions. He didn't get down the track at all. Goes out there and takes out Justin Ashley round number 1. And obviously, Justin Ashley loses first round of Pomona as well. You can't win a championship going out first round the last 2 races of the year. Brittany Force stepped up and she got it done. And let's not forget, Brittany Force went out second round the first 4 races of the countdown. It looked like she was dead in the water. But her, David Grubnick, Max Savage, they stepped up and got it done. Got to give it to them.
It was a crazy year with racing. It's kind of funny, like going back and listening to everybody else talk about it. When you're on the team doing everything, it's crazy how fast everything goes. And like at the end of the weekend, you're like, what even happened this weekend? Who did what? And then going back and listening to everybody talk about it and see everything on social media, it's crazy there's so much more going on than when you're looking at the 1 car or 2 cars in the pits, and then you see, oh wait, that happened. Wait, what? When did that happen? And it's just crazy to think about when you're focused solely on the 1 car. It's cool seeing how much everything else is going on.
And then just to bring that up too, is because we talked about just how crazy the season was. We talked about at the beginning of the stream about Will, your weekend at Indy. Not only did you join the weekend that everybody decided to bring their car out of their garage and bring a 25 field top fuel car to Indianapolis, but also the fact that not only were you impressive, you were what I call the best of the rest. You were the first car out in what ended up being the fastest field in top fuel history. It's just, what was it like trying to be competitive like that? Because you had those goals set and you just almost made it in there coming into the end like that. Just talk about the competitiveness from your side for that one weekend that you got to experience that.
It's crazy to think that, and being at PRI a few weeks ago, and everybody's, hey, if you'd went to such and such race, you would have qualified, and it's like any other race we'd have went to, we would have qualified. And that's cool. I mean, obviously you run good enough to where you could have qualified at any other race. But like Larry and I said, we didn't want to cherry pick, it's like it's Indy and me being on, I mean, I would like to think, and a lot of people would back me up on this, I believe in being a true racer. And Scott Palmer said it best when I came out and put my press release out. He says, dude, you're running Indy with Larry Dixon. He was like, real racers go to Indy, and that was really cool. Like I had to screenshot that, because Scott and I are buddies, but I thought it was so cool because it's like, and I keep telling myself, hey, this may be the only time I ever drive a top fuel car. But you know what? It's at Indy, and there's 25 cars here. And if we get in, this is going to be a feat, And if we don't, hey, we still ran Indy, So I looked at it as a win-win, But yeah, what an experience. It was great to see that many cars come out, I'm a passionate drag racer, and everybody that says, oh, this or that, negative about the series or drag racing as a whole, I think we're all doing very well, and I think we all got to keep contributing and doing our parts to make drag racing, continue to keep it at the top of where it should be, and everybody's doing a great job at it, and we just got to keep at it,
And something I wanted to bring up too. So I remember going into Indy, and I had been there in 2018, 2019, when it was kind of at what would have been viewed as the low point for U.S. Nationals, where a lot of that electricity left the air. But going to Indy this year, there's, even from the driver's perspectives, if you watch Clay's vlog from the week prior, he was talking about how that electricity was starting to get back in the air. Like, you could say, like, oh, Indy's Indy still, even back then. But at the end of the day, the hype alone that was brought within that event, with how many cars showed up, the fact that like 1,000 cars in the sportsman category alone, from the top end all the way to the staging lanes, there was standing room only there. What was the electricity like? And also talk about the turnaround. And is it fair to say that Indy is kind of back to that level that it was used to be at, whereas even though it has the history level where anybody wants to win Indy, but now it's becoming again that must go to event for even a casual fan who might live down the street and hear it?
I think it has. The COVID put a damper on everything, unfortunately, but I feel like we have, overcome all of that. And this was a time, like going back to Indy this year, like it felt like Indy, and what kind of stunk the other year was, during COVID, however many races we had at Indy, I can't remember, but it's like, for me, like Indy is sacred, like you go there the last week of August into the first week of September, and that's when the big go is, but when you have, 3 or 4 or however many races, I felt like it kind of put a damper on things. Just me being a drag racing fan, but I appreciate all the NHRA did for, having those races there and allowing us to race. But I can tell you this, in 2019, I made it to the semifinals in Top Alcohol Dragster at Indy, and we had a shot to win that thing, and it was a year later when me and Dave and our team, we won the points meet out at Earlville, Iowa, the week after Indy in 20. And that was great. That was my first win, in Top Alcohol, and just an awesome experience. But Dave and I both said, going back to Indy in 2019 at the U.S. Nationals, making it to the semifinals, and it was me, Megan Meyer, Rachel Meyer, and Troy Coughlin Jr., and we had all run 20s. We were all low to mid 20 players, and we had a shot at winning this thing. Making it to the semifinal and losing there, like, felt like a win in and of itself. It's like, man, this is Indy. Like, we did this, and that was the highlight of our year. And I'll tell you, like, we threw it all down in the semis, and as I mentioned earlier about my best friend Brian, he was suiting me up, and I said, dude, we're going into the semis here at Indy, and we got a shot at this thing, and I told him, I said, this is my exact word. I said, this is right where I want to be. We got to run the quickest car here, which was Troy Coughlin, McPhillips family. They have a great car over there, and I said, I will be up on the wheel, I promise you. And if we got a shot at this thing, I'm going to take everything we can get out of it. And I'm 006 on the tree, and he was like 56, 62, somewhere right around there, And I was ahead of him past 8th mile, and we burned ahead up and went 32, our slowest run of the weekend. We knew we had picked at the head the round before, but we only had 30-minute turnaround, and it's like we had all agreed we had one cylinder head waiting for the next round. We get by this round, we're going to throw a head on it. We thought the head would make it one more round, and it didn't. But it's like, man, what could have been? Like, we'd have put that head on that run. I feel pretty certain we could have won that round, and it's like, but at the end of the day, making it to semifinals at Indy, that felt like a big win. I mean, it's Indy. It's every drag racer's dream.
I agree with what you said about how Indy is like the U.S. Nationals, and Indy is sacred. I was there for a couple of the makeup races in 2020 and then the 2021 U.S. Nationals, but it wasn't back up. Like Noah was talking about the electricity, everything going on. It wasn't back up to it until this year. And this is the first year that I was at the U.S. Nationals in all its glory. And that was really cool to see after the past 2 years of it kind of being a little bit dead or not up to par, if you will, for that race.
Hey, Michaelan, I don't know if you remember this. So last year's Indy was my first ever U.S. Nationals in person. I've been watching this since I was a little kid, but last year was my first ever one in person. And I had this really cheap old camera, right? And I'm just going around trying to do my thing. And you walk. I was with, I forgot, it was one of my friends' names. And you walked up, and you were genuinely asking me questions about my camera, even though it's like the cheapest camera on the property. And I just thought that was so cool. It just showed how humble you were. But just going back onto that, 2021 Indy, like I said, my first Indy, you only got 3 qualifying sessions. 2 of them got rained out on Saturdays. So you really only got 1 session. But then you fast forward to this year, at this year's U.S. Nationals, 5 sessions. I know 1 got rained out, but even the shootouts are back. You talk about the shootout races were back. Who put up the money this year? Pep Boys. Pep Boys put up the money for the shootouts this year. So, yeah. So, I mean, just everything, the thrill, the magic, everything, the luster of Indy really came back this year, and it was really cool to see.
I remember that when I came up to you, because I think I had a Canon T3i when I was doing that, and I was saving up, trying to get the new camera, just trying to get there, and I was just trying to learn everything I could. I was filming everything, and it's really funny going back and watching my video from that weekend, because you look back at it, and I'm like, you were such an idiot then. How did anybody deal with you compared to where I am now with my videos and how I feel like I've stepped up the production value and everything, but it's so cool how much you can learn and change everything within just a year.
Yeah, and I just thought that was so humble of you to really ask questions about my camera, because I had a Canon T6, which is not that great, not that professional, but for you to still ask questions about that, I thought it was really pretty cool on your end,
I got to tell you, I thought this was cool real quick, because we were at Indy. I'm pretty sure it was Friday, if I'm not mistaken, Michaelan. He come over, introduced himself, gave me his card, and asked, if there's any need for video work or whatever, to hit him up. And I thought that was really cool that he come over there. I really, really did. And then the fact that I could tell, he had been working. You know what I mean? I'm not talking about you. I'm saying it's really cool. You could tell he'd been working on the car and everything, but he's out hustling doing this. And that, to me, I didn't forget that. And I'm like, this kid's a hustler, in a good way. He's out here working hard. He loves drag racing, and he's working on the car, and he's out trying to, doing video work. I mean, I thought that was really cool. I really did.
A lot of people don't unless you're a driver or you're within most of the people on YouTube don't know about the videography stuff that I do for different teams. But that's how I pay my bills. I've got a 68 Camaro we're working on restoring, and that's how I'm paying for that. Because someday we're going to be one of the top teams in drag racing, like Tony Stewart or John Force Racing. And it's sorry. every time, like growing up, I watched Dad work his butt off with everything he did because drag racing was the biggest dream he ever had. He watched on TV growing up, and always watching that kind of lit a fire in me to where I'm doing everything I can to make it happen. I'm working on the car. I'm making my videos. I'm out doing videos for teams, just working my butt off because someday we're going to get there and we're going to make it happen, and got to be out hustling to do that.
And,
Trust me, I know how that is.
You do.
and I also want to point this out too, because so Indy was the first time I'd ever been in the media center, so I was like nervous as all hell could be because of the fact that it's like, I'm gonna take it back like a month prior. I had just woken up. I got out of the bed. I checked my emails, and it was like just habitually checking my emails, saying like, I wonder if I got anything interesting going on. And I see this one email pop up on my YouTube emails. Like I just started that email account. No one had access to that besides what was on my channel. And I see an email from a person named Allie, and I was like, it said U.S. Nationals, and she had the invite. I was like, no, this is a scam. There's no way in hell. So I put my phone in my pocket, and I'm walking out the door, and I'm like, why would, like, of all places, why that? And I look at it, I was like, oh crap, that isn't. It was like, I remember vividly, I was sitting in the media center. I think it was like right as they were getting ready for the night qualifying session. I was getting ready to go out, and I was working on the thumbnail, and this guy walks up behind me, and it was Darren. And it's like, the way I always viewed it was like, man, it sounds like I didn't care. It was like, honestly, it was kind of like, struck out. I was like, what the hell? Someone in here knows who I am? What the hell? It's like, that weekend alone, just being able to be there to meet you and also meet Lee and all you guys is just, it just honestly made me love Indy more. I grew up in Indy. Indy is my hometown. I grew up going to that track. My first ever event was a Silver Crown race during the NASCAR weekend back when they had the Speed Fest. So to have that started there was awesome to be able to do at the U.S. Nationals, especially at the one that's now considered one of the top end U.S. Nationals to have happened, but also the one that might have put it back on the map as a kind of an exclamation point. Because I remember even after Friday qualifying, I was standing down on the starting line doing the video and just thinking to myself, I was like, I keep seeing these stupid comments about NHRA is dead. I look at the crowd that was there that night, and it was packed from both ends down the entire drag strip. A lot going on there. And I looked at the camera, I was like, NHRA is not dead. I slammed the notepad in the ground. It's just, that night alone cemented to me that I was like, it doesn't matter what any old head says that hates what the decisions have been made. The electricity in the air that entire weekend was something to behold. And the fact that so much interest being brought up of fans that just had an interest in it, from 5-year-olds that are walking around. I remember just even doing it. I did interview Tony Schumacher, which was blindsiding me. The fact I'm talking to Tony Schumacher, I'm walking with 5-year-olds like, you have a YouTube channel? It was like, what the hell? Even a 5-year-old is asking me who I am. It's just, being able to be at the U.S. Nationals is cool. And I will say this, and you guys can talk into from your experiences, just if there's ever an event to go to, you got to go to Indy. Indy is Indy. It doesn't matter what it is. You can be going to Terre Haute, you can go to Lincoln Park, you can be going to IMS or even IRP on the oval, the drag strip, or if they bring back the road course. Indy is Indy, but especially the U.S. Nationals, you have to go to Indy.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, it's kind of funny. Like, I remember different parts. Like, then everybody's gonna have a different memory of what was important that weekend. Like, Will, you're obviously gonna remember the paint scheme and your debut race. I remember the biggest thing that was going on that weekend is I decided to start doing daily videos on the YouTube. So I was out there, and all of a sudden I see all my numbers going up, 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 up. Oh, how'd that get to there? And that's like the biggest thing I remember from Indy. And then, like, it's so crazy because there's thousands of people out there on any given weekend. It's really cool hearing about everybody's different experiences from the weekend, because you're over here focusing on your little bubble with what you're working on, with working on the car or whatever. And then you come on here and you hear about what was going on with you. It's really cool because when you're there in the moment, you really don't realize how much is going on and how impressive it actually is, especially for somebody there for their first time.
I remember my first Indy was 2009. Excuse me. When I worked on Mike Castellano's Pro Mod car with Shannon Jenkins, and I was 2009 was my first year in college. So like after I graduated high school, I was working for the race team voluntarily, but it was a full-time job for me because I always wanted to be there, I always wanted to work, but I had to go to school full-time too in college. And I remember me and Iceman drove up there Thursday, and we get to the track, and you get close to the track, and then you're going down the road, and you're passing all these trailers, and I'm just like, I could not believe all the amount of sportsman cars, teams, and then when we come through the gate on the pro side and drove around, and then like where pro mods were always on that back, the back 40 out there, per se, it was just like, wow, I'd never seen so many race cars and truck trailers packed in there like it was. And it was just like surreal, because I always said growing up, like my parents always took me to Gainesville, Atlanta, and Memphis every year. That was Gainesville is what I consider my home track. Go every year. Of course, we went to Atlanta and Memphis every year. But anyway, with that being said, like I always said when I graduated high school, that was going to be my senior trip, and because that's what Indy meant to me, and fortunately I was able to go when I was working for Mike and Shannon. But anyway, like I'll never forget that moment, when you driving in, everything was done for the evenings, but the arch is lit up and everything, and it's just like, wow, this place it was way more than I ever expected, and I just couldn't put it in words. I'll never forget that. And I mean, I see it right now, looking at the tower, and I'm like, man, I'm at Indy,
Yeah.
And you look at that racetrack, and the towers change, the arches change over time, but that racetrack has stayed the same. And you think about all the history that's been up, down that track, and what's happened on the starting line, what's happened on the big end. I mean, it's just like, it's a sacred place.
It's so impressive. And it's also like, when you think about that stuff, it's really humbling, because you're standing on the starting line of a track that has had legends go down it.
Yep.
So many impressive people, so many impressive stories, and everything that's there. You stand there, you go up to the track in the morning or at night, and you're kind of hit with all of the wow.
Yep.
Like, that's incredible.
Mm-hmm. I'll say this, everyone like that really knows me knows my love and appreciation for drag racing, and as I've mentioned many times in social media posts and press releases, like Bill Mullins is a very good friend of mine, and Bill used to race Top Alcohol Dragster and Top Fuel, and Daryl Gwynn is a very good friend of mine. Well, them two used to travel together when they raced Top Alcohol and Top Fuel together, and having the number 200 on my car, that was Bill Mullins' Top Fuel number back in the day. And to debut that at Indy and to have that number, I mean, bless his heart, when I called Bill and told him what I did, I mean, the guy cried. He thought it was so cool, and it's like, makes me want to, and but I look at, I go back and watch these old videos like at Indy, and we're Bill Mullins and Daryl Gwynn and Garlitz and, all these just legends, race there, and the successes they had there. It kind of feels like I don't belong here, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, everybody's like, oh man, you're driving for Larry Dixon. I'm like, look, bro, don't even put my name like close to his, and what's funny is I jank on Larry, I tell him like, I mean, he's Larry Dixon, and he'd probably look at this and shake his head and roll his eyes, but at the end of the day, he's a very humble and appreciative person, and that's what I really like about Larry. But it's like, it's kind of the same thing, it's like, I'll never live up to what these guys, have done for our sport. And that's my opinion. I don't think so. I'm going to do everything I can, but I don't think it'll ever happen.
It kind of makes me laugh when you said the part about having him cry. It seems like making your mentors cry, it's become my favorite hobby. Like when I got out of the race car, and for Christmas, NHRA did an article about me after the fact of me driving, So I went through and like formatted it like a regular newspaper article, like all these articles he has hung in the shop, and gave it to him for Christmas. And I made him cry about it, and it's kind of become my favorite hobby because it's a lot of fun, and at the same time, it's really humbling. Like, wow, I'm doing enough to. Dad's dedicated 25 years of his life to this sport and trying to make this dream happen. And maybe we're not on the level of Tony Stewart Racing yet or John Force Racing, but what we have is really, really impressive. And the fact that I can go out there and make one hit and make him cry because he cares so much, he's dreamed about this his entire life, is really cool and really humbling and really fun.
I'll tell you, I had my mom and dad with me at Indy, and they were there when I got my license the month before. But after that run Friday night, we had our little moment. They come back to the trailer, and I'm in the lounge, and and I'm taking my suit off and everything. But obviously, I hugged both my parents, and they was proud of me. But hugged my dad, and I said, "We made it. We finally made it." And my dad always wanted to see me drive a Top Fuel car one day, and I just hugged him tight, and I gave him the hat they give me for the interview. I said, "Hey, I want you to have this," and I said, we made it. We're here. We're doing this. And that was a really special moment.
Yeah, exactly. It's really special being able to do it with all the people that you care about. That all the like, not to get too deep or whatever, but all the race cars in the world, it doesn't mean anything if you're not doing it with your friends and your family, and those are the things that make life important. And then when you get these amazing opportunities, I am just talking from my experience, I'm so blessed that I have the opportunities to do everything that I get to do because Dad's done all of this. It's so cool being able to do it with all the important people, because that's what makes it really mean something. That's what makes it matter. Mm-hmm. All this is worth nothing if you don't get to spend time with your friends and your family and have them be a part of it, in 100%. My opinion.
And that's the kind of thing I go back to, is you got to talk a little about how Indy means. That was the question I asked just about every person I had the opportunity to interview. Was the last question I would go up to is, what does Indy really mean to you guys? That's a quote that was brought over from IMS from Al Unser Jr.'s win back in '92 when he won that event. And it translates that well, just because of the fact that Indy, like I said, Indy's Indy. It doesn't matter where you're at. When you enter those state lines, there's racing is a part of that state and it's a part of its culture. And I knew what Indy meant to these people, to the community as a whole, to the drivers, for anybody to race, let alone win it. It didn't really sit into me just how much it meant until I saw Ron Capps win, and he didn't even wait for the car to stop. Car is still rolling down the racetrack, punches the roof up, and is standing on top of the car as it's rolling down the shutdown area. Is the emotions that go through the mind of people who win those events. And even after the fact, Antron wins it. And what does he do? Guy lifts up someone who's probably, double his weight, and just picks him up like a baby as a fireman carrying him next to the car. It's just seeing what those guys mean about when they win Indy is absolutely fantastic. And it's one of those things, again, if you have the opportunity to go to Indy, I would absolutely, that's the top of the bucket list item to go to.
There's no other way to say it than Indy's Indy. It's just all the drag races are amazing. Wherever you are, you should always get the opportunity to try to go to one, whether it's Gainesville, whether it's Pomona, whether it's Seattle, whether it's Denver. All these races are still amazing and awesome to see. But then you go to Indy, and it just hits different.
Mm-hmm. So then the thing I'll add about it too, because I've talked about Indy for about half an hour, so I feel like this has just been an Indy recap. Looking back through this whole season, kind of give me what your highlight was through this year, whether it was something that happened in the countdown or something that happened earlier in the season. What was the moment that you look at as something that was the big takeaway from either a highlight or just the storyline of the season?
Oh, shoot. Yeah, man, I guess I'll start off. It was so much. I kind of mentioned them off top when I came on. So, Like funny car, you start off the season. Robert Hight goes back to back. Remember, he almost runs over his crew member at the Winter Nationals. Has his great season, wins 8 races. You got Bobby Bodie going to the final round of Houston, but he blows it up against Matt Hagan in the final. And just so much stuff. Like I said, Greg Anderson's 100. Steve Torrance getting knocked off, the top spot. Antron Brown coming back to form. Like, it's drag racing is great when Antron Brown is back in championship form. The sport is just all around better with him with that. And then how about, like I said at the beginning, pro style motorcycles in the 660s? Whoever would have thought 666? I mean, that is flying by Karen Stover right there. We'll see if anybody could dip in the 60s next year as well. But I mean, just so much stuff overall. And I just want to just
think
real
about
quick.
2005. I was in Gainesville when they went to 690, 98, 699. The first I was there when that happened. Like, that's crazy. They've come that far, since then.
No, for real. And I don't want to deviate off your question too much, but I just want to give one of my Indy stories real quick. Because last year was my first U.S. Nationals. And so it wasn't my first time in the media center, but it was like my third time because I'd been in the media center, Sonoma, Pomona first. Because remember, Pomona was in the Western Swing last year. Yeah. But I'm in Indy. We pull up, and like Will, like you said, that big arch that you see all the time on TV with the bridge. I was like, oh man, this is the U.S. National. This is Indy. And John Force qualifies number 1 that night. He goes number 1. And I walk up to John. I'm like, hey, John, because as you can see, John Force is my favorite driver right there. I got all the diecast in the background. I go, John, I was like,
I thought Will Smith was.
You up there, man? You up there?
I mean, why are we left out?
What's he got other than 150 some odd wins and 16 championships? But
he has enough fans. He's fine.
Yeah.
I will say though,
Terry Haddock fans over here.
Larry Dixon is my second favorite driver of all time. I gotta say that though.
I'll take it. I'll take your third. I guess I'm the third, maybe, right?
And then you, Terry Haddock, and you were tied for third. There you go.
All right, I'll take that. That'll work.
But I walk up to John. I'm like, John, I gotta get an interview with you. Can I get an interview? He goes, yeah, sure. Just talk to my PR girl Sarah, and we'll set it up. So the next day, luckily, obviously we hate rain delays in drag racing, but luckily it worked out. We got a rain delay, so I was able to interview John. And I'm thinking I'm gonna just do the interview in his pit in front of the car. He goes, no, let's go back in the lounge. I'm like, no way. So it's me, my dad, and my friend, and we're sitting in John Force's lounge, where he does the practice tree and everything like that. Yeah. I'm like, I'm this young kid from Inglewood, California, at the U.S. Nationals in John Force's lounge, private lounge. I'm like, it don't get no better than this, man. And so I just wanted to share that story real quick because a life-changing experience right there.
That's awesome. I remember that rain delay in Indy. It's kind of off topic, but I was so behind on my schoolwork for that week, that day. I was like, my parents were on me. Everybody was on me. Like, dude, you need to get this school done. Because I had like 5 assignments left that I still had to do. And there were like 2 big essays or something. And I was so thankful that there was a rain delay that day because it meant I was getting all my school stuff done. And like, I hated not being racing, but I was so thankful that I was able to get that done. And that's one of my biggest takeaways from that weekend. Like, wow, I barely made it through that.
It rained all day that day too, right? It never stopped. Like, it rained all day, like nonstop the whole day. It was crazy.
I also remember, like, over in the oval track, there used to be a little tiny pond. And during the when I was taking a break from school, I was hanging out with some of my friends. And there's a bunch of I don't think the pond's still there, but there was a little fish in that pond, and my friends had some fishing rods. I went out there and I caught this fish and accidentally broke my friend's fishing rod doing that. And I ended up, like, they live in Oklahoma, so I ended up getting a new fishing rod, and I think I mailed it to them because I felt bad about breaking their fishing rod.
Just going back to, because it seems like this is just an indie stream at this point. It's just like, you talk about the first indie experience. When I went there for the first time, I talked to Allie and everybody there, and it was like, there's so few seats. There's a little to no chance that you're going to get one. It's like, that's fine. I'm just happy to be here. And then, like, the next day, we got a text, and she said that there were some spots open for us. And we went in there, and just sitting down there, it's like, the entire goal for me was I wanted to do something racing. I had no idea what it was. And it just so happened that an interest in wanting to do this and wanting to take the stage, like, he's out of here. I hope he's okay. He's just sitting down in that chair and seeing that little slip of paper that they have there that has your name on it. It was like, I mean, heck, reach over here. It's like I still have that. That piece of paper is like it's a stupid little thing, but it means the world to me because it's like you work your whole life. You're looking for this way to get a door to get in. Media just is like almost as hard as getting in there as getting inside behind the driver's seat. Yeah. It is so hard. You have to know the right people to get into those doors, and it's just having my friends there with me, standing behind me the entire time. We were looking at each other throughout the weekend, and I was like, how in the hell did we end up here? How was this an idea that we could be sitting here doing this? So it's just, this year alone has been crazy on my end, but I can't imagine what it's been like for all of you because Lee, I'm hoping Lee is able to have a time to get in here because the first introduction I had to Lee was him trying to get me to go to the Cruise Pedregon open house. And then the next day, he's all the way out, I think it was South Dakota, hosting, I think, like 20 Car Chaos, and then driving all the way back here the next day. It's just, I can't imagine the road stories that you guys have from what this year has just been alone. It's just,
there's crazy stories. Like there's so much that you go through, like all the people that you're with that you guys all go through on the road, like truck tires going out, the generator on the motorhome quitting, all kinds of little stuff. It's all like, there's so much more behind it that people don't realize. But I wanted to touch back. You were talking about your first media center experience. I remember in Denver of 2021 when I was like all in, focused on doing the videography stuff for the teams. I remember I somehow talked my way into the media center. And I got a little tiny desk in the back with some spare chair they had. And like, I didn't get one of the slips of paper. I didn't get none of the bougie stuff. But I remember that was so cool that I was sitting up there watching the track in Denver from the media center. And like, I was just starting. I was an idiot kid who didn't really know what he was doing at the time. And they still gave me the opportunity, which I thought was really cool. And like now I've got a great relationship with all the people at NHRA, with Kurt, with Nikki, with everybody there because they helped me get to where I am now in a sense. But like it's so cool getting, for lack of a better term, cool being able to get into the media center and getting that opportunity.
Hey Noah.
What's up?
Are we gonna say something? I didn't mean to cut you off.
I didn't really have much. There was Drag Racing Central being Drag Racing Central chimed in, had this comment. It's about what I'm about to do. We're getting there.
We can go back to your question.
Yeah. So it's just again, you talk about how crazy this year has been. You're talking about all that. I think the biggest takeaway I've had from this year alone is what I would just about call the Tony Schumacher saga. That guy went from blazing the scene, hops on, almost wins U.S. National Rookie Year, just tears apart the entire field. And then mid-2010s, like towards the latter end of those years, starts to fall off due to losing the sponsorship, ends up going part-time, back full-time, and then this year winning 2 races in a row. And it just kind of seems like while he's still trying to get those pieces there over Maynard Family Racing, I honestly feel like coming into 2023, we could maybe start to see a return to form of what I call the return of the Sarge, to maybe see him make another sort of run toward the championship. Because if we can see what Antron Brown did and what Ron Capps did on their own, we're starting to maybe see what Tony Schumacher still has left in him with those guys and maybe make a run for another title.
I think that would be really cool to see. Tony's a really good guy. And at least personally, he's always willing to talk to me. Like, we actually ran into him on an airplane coming back from Indy, which I guess this video is now. But we ran into him on the airplane, and he was like, oh, yeah, go ahead, put me in your video. He's a really good guy, and he's a really good driver, as evidenced by all the wins, all the championships, everything we've seen from him. And I think it'd be really cool to be back at the top for him.
I mean, you got to think. So you got Mike Neff and John Schaefer over there now tuning his race car next year. If you remember, before Tony Schumacher left the first time, when he lost the U.S. Army sponsorship, Mike Neff was over there tuning that car, and they had a pretty good race car at the time. So them rejoining with Mike Neff, you got add John Schaefer to that mix now. I think we could see some pretty good results from Schumacher next year. Let's see how it all plays out. We see
I
maybe
think it go really well. John and Mike are both really good guys and really good tuners. Like I know them personally, especially John, and they're both really good at what they do. And I think they're going to do really good over there at Schumacher's.
For sure. And so, do you know where Okahara's going? I haven't heard anything about where he's going. Is he going to Tasca?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say. I do know.
Okay,
but
gotcha.
I don't get anybody in trouble.
Gotcha.
I do know where he's going, but I don't want to say and get anybody in trouble or get anybody mad at us.
Where he's
Gotcha.
going, not where he's staying. Okay.
Let's touch back on
rewind it.
It's their favorite moment from 2022. Mine's gonna be a lot different than anybody else's because like I'm really focused on what we do with THR, and so my favorite thing isn't gonna be Justin Ashley or Karen Stouffer's 666 or whatever. My favorite race this year was Epping. I've found like the East Coast races seem to hit different. Like they are really, really cool. And that was one of the best races that we had this year. Maybe we didn't do the best, but it was my favorite. We got to spend time with all our friends and family. And like I was saying a few minutes ago, that's what all makes all this important, makes all of it go, what makes all of it worth something. And that's what my favorite moment from 2020, which is probably going to be different from everybody else's.
You guys went to semis at Epping last year too, right?
Yes, we got to the semis in Epping. This year honestly, I don't remember what all we did at the race. Like they all run together. I think we lost first round with both cars, but like we built a new dragster at the start of this year. So Epping was the first race where it was really starting to come around and be worth, like it was turning into a really competitive car, and Dad was starting to be happy with it because we were fighting little issues all year round of like stupid little things that are easy to miss that ended up biting us in the butt. And so Epping's just a really good race. It's up in Dad's home area, so we get to see all his family. We went up to see my grandma the day after the race. And then I saw Drag Racing Central just put a comment up for Maple Grove being the race of the year, and I'd have to say I'd agree. That was my second favorite race of the year. All the East Coast races just hit different.
And that was another thing I was going to bring up. Because speaking of Maple Grove, how about Austin Prock? That's the guy who I look at as one of the bigger surprises of this year because he started off strong, had a huge slump. You can tell the frustration in his voice. Even at Indy, goes out first round, gets an interview, and says, "Well, at least we got the charity spot." And then goes into Maple Grove, wins that, goes from 12th in the standings at the beginning of it, ends up third and beating Antron Brown in the finals at Pomona. Just what a turnaround for a season like him. And I'm sure it has something to do a bit with the countdown scenario, but you can't take away the fact that in those final few races, something within that team ticked. And it seems like going into next year, if all the cards stay where they are and they can keep the momentum up, Austin Prock is going to be what everybody expected him to be and is going to be possibly turning through that field to be one of the potential favorites for that title.
And he has the best celebrations right now in drag racing. Let's just say that.
No doubt.
Get on top of the wing, like
seeing him up there on the wing.
Yeah, that is the most badass celebration right now, I gotta say.
Yeah. I'm sure his crew chiefs don't like it after he steps on the wrong part of the wing, but it always makes for cool pictures. It's really cool to see.
It is
not everybody realizes how hard it is to get up there. Like even just getting a camera mounted up there is really hard. I can't imagine getting your whole body up there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would need a ladder to get up there, as short as I am.
That was the number one thing too. I was wondering is because the fact that it's I wouldn't say something to take away from the sprint car side of things where they would always hop out, climb on top of the gas tank, and then hop over the backside of the wing. But it's like that wing, like even to get the parachute trapped on the wing, they need a old wooden box that they carry around with them just to stand on top of it to reach over it, let alone climbing on top of it. I don't know how he's monkey barring his way up on top of that thing, but I saw it, and the biggest takeaways I had from that is, first off, how heavy the back side of that car is, because the fact he's able to stand on there with his full body weight and not have the front end of that car start to tip up just even the tiniest bit. But in all honesty, it is without a doubt probably the most unique and interesting way to celebrate a win that anybody has really found a way to do it. I think the only thing that could maybe beat it is anybody does watches Monster Jam is if he gets on top of that thing and does a chuggy dance on top of the top wing. I think that would be the only way you could one up that.
Yeah. Hey, and so since we're talking about Austin Prock and he wins Pomona and he gets on the wing, fist in the air, and it looks cool. He looks like a superhero because it's nighttime, sun setting. We've been talking about Indy this whole show, right? How the luster has come back to Indy. Well, let's talk about the luster come back to Pomona though, because I'm from Southern California, and like
Pomona hasn't been my favorite, but it seems like we were talking about earlier about like the electricity coming back to Indy. I think Pomona's coming back, like especially with In-N-Out coming back and sponsoring Pomona Raceway. It is now. I think that in the next few years we're going to see like a big boom of drag racing in Southern California. And I think one thing that Pomona, I'm not sure why they don't do it, but they only run the 2 races a year at that track. They run the Winter Nationals and then the NHRA Finals. I think we need to figure out how to get like regular bracket racing back at that track, because that could bring a lot to Southern California, because there's either Bakersfield or Irwindale right now in Southern California, and Bakersfield is more Central California that you can get at. So I think there's obviously millions of people in Southern California that I'm sure if we got regular racing happening at Pomona, that it could do really well for the sport.
Nah, for sure. And being from Southern California, it's been kind of tough to see the crowds there the past couple of years, but you can see, like, you know, this year, even at the Winter Nationals, it's starting to come back around now. And I think by the World Finals next year, they're going to have that other side open again, and there's going to be a lot of fans at Pomona. So really cool to see. Happy to see In-N-Out on board and see what they can bring to the table. I know they're going to bring a drag race to Southern California also, some type of specialty race. I don't know the full details or anything like that, but it's funny to think, like, we talk about the U.S. Nationals. It was literally at the U.S. Nationals when we got a report that Pomona might be going away within the next couple of years. And all of a sudden we get this big deal. So I'm excited, man. Drag racing is still the home of Southern California is still the home of drag racing. I'm gonna just say that right now. So
I also think In-N-Out needs to get like a burger stand out there at the track, because
you brought up the idea.
Saying this In-N-Out is better than Whataburger. So I mean, but they need a really nice burger stand out there at the track.
I think the only thing missing at this rate is if we can find a Bucky sponsorship on one of those top field draggers, and that's the only thing that can make this whole deal perfect, is if we can get a Minnie's Bucky's gas station. You can sell beaver nuggets at the Dallas Stampede of Speed. I'm already guaranteed. I'm trying to go to that event next year. If I can get beaver nuggets at that track, done.
I think like what needs to happen.
Hooters.
Yeah. I think Bucky's needs to be on the side of a car, and I think like back in the day, the Midway was the biggest deal, and maybe since I'm not a little kid walking around all day, now it's different. But I think we need a big Buc-ee's stand on the Midway and make the Midway exciting and huge again. And maybe that's just from an experience of not getting out to go wander around as much because I'm working on the cars.
And I feel like that's a bit of a fair statement. But even then, it's like, I think the Midway is something that can be revitalized, but at the same time, as you know, I've been to other pro racing series and they're all just about the same at this point. It's just they try their best, and I expect hopefully in the near future you can see more interaction with what's going on down there. Because I remember, I think it was Autosport who wrote that article, the 10 things they want to see.
Yeah.
That was a really good article. There was just about anything in there that I could agree with. But the Midway was a big one, that if there was something that needs to be revitalized that could bring in fan interaction, it's that. Because they did a good, I think, in my honest opinion, if there's one group that I could give the top props to as someone who really went above and beyond to bring fan interaction in drag racing, it was the Dodge camp. Because I went there, you see what they put in there with the interactive, with having the engines. They brought out Herb McCandless's car. They brought out Paul Rossi's car. And then they had those two giant simulators sitting inside there. You could drag race each other. That's the kind of stuff that you see. I remember as a kid when Toyota first joined in the Cup Series in NASCAR, we went to the Brickyard 400, and they had this ginormous campsite located across the street from the track. And they had 5 simulators, a paint booth in there. They had all the cars in there. They had everything. To see Dodge bring anything like that back in 2022 was really exciting to see. And I think if there's people that you can take notes from as to who you can base your fanway around, Dodge, because they did an absolute hell of a job promoting that event, especially at their own event. They went above and beyond to try and make their Midway the place to be, and it arguably was.
I agree. Dodge does really good about their Midway and all their interactive stuff. I think that's really good, and that's what all the companies out there need to be doing. And like you just put up on screen, Traxxas was the biggest thing, how they had all the jumps and everything with all the RC cars. That was super, super cool. But real quick, I'd like to jump back. You were just mentioning that Auto Week article of the 8 or 10 things they'd like to see in drag racing. And one of the points was they wanted to do like a reality TV show or add like more reality to the NHRA program. And you guys, everybody watching, is going to be the first to know about this other than my family, but I'm working on producing a TV series that'll go up on my YouTube channel. It'll be called Life in the Fast Lane, and it's going to be following the THR 2023 season from the little car stuff all the way up to the big show. So you guys kind of get the spur of the moment announcement for that.
Nice.
That's something I'm excited to see.
When can we look forward to episode 1?
Absolutely. And that's something I wanted to touch on too, because I got into a conversation with Nikki, and the responses to that is kind of like the way drivers are comparatively from the F1 side, because obviously when you talk about a reality TV show, immediately thoughts going ahead, driver survive, driver survive, driver survive. And it's talking about how drivers kind of have a way where they're more, they see a camera and they notice it because they want to promote their sponsors. And I was going to ask kind of Will about this because he has firsthand knowledge on this kind of stuff as a driver. And it's just kind of the culture difference, because when you look at an F1 driver, when they get to that top level, they're already trained PR-wise of how to handle mobs of fans coming up to them, being able to be hyper-focused enough to know, okay, I need to go here. And even with all the cameras, they can just keep walking. But as an NHRA driver, you see that, and you have all these sponsors that you need to make sure that they get the recognition they deserve, but also be able to put yourself out there to get more. Kind of talk about I kind of would say it as a culture difference between what an F1 driver has with the hyper focus of focusing on the track and leave the stuff going on behind the paddock behind, compared to an NHRA driver where you see you guys standing out there on the edge of your pit sites, signing autographs and taking photos and everything. Let's just kind of talk about a culture shock of what it's like having the cameras around and noticing them trying to get yourself out there like that. I know it's a weird question. I'm trying to figure out a way to word it properly.
Who's that for, me?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've never really thought too much about that. I mean, it is like I think what's so cool about drag racing is every ticket's a pit pass, and it still amazes me the people who that I've casual fans, people I know back here at home that think when I invite them out to a race, they're like, oh, so is that to sit in the stands, or what have I got to do to get in the pits? And I'm like, hey, any ticket you buy is a pit pass. I think that's a huge value we have in drag racing over any other motorsports there is, to having that access. Man, I mean, much more than that, I really don't know. I think I haven't experienced firsthand really a lot of other motorsports, honestly. I respect and appreciate all forms of motorsports. I'm a gearhead. I'm a car guy. I love engines. I love everything about it. But as far as like attending them, as far as like religiously following them, it's drag racing for me. It's NHRA, it's PDRA, it's everything. So I'm probably not the best person to answer that question for you for that simple fact. But I will say, you know, I think as a motorsport, you know, in drag racing, we have so much more to offer than, and not this in any other, you know, form of motorsports. But I think with the access that we have to our fans, and that the fans have access to us, and the value that we can sell to our sponsors because of that access, because of the media coverage that we have, the access that the media has to us as race teams, man, I think we got it all, honestly. We just gotta do a better job at selling it, I guess, to the public, you know.
And I guess I can go into a bit of the next question. Is we talk about, like, the big talking point for a lot of guys is kind of the future of the NHRA. And that's something that I said even back in 2018, 2019, when I was just a random fan walking around the Midway, is that as an outsider who went in there for the first time, even then I could say this is arguably the most underrated, underlooked at series within the world of motorsports. Because you talk to NASCAR fans, they say, oh, the races are too short or too boring. They can't get behind the IndyCar. The speeds aren't high enough. It's not exciting enough. They want the V8 engines back. And you go in NHRA, it's like 4-second passes. They're nail biting all the way down to the end. It's unpredictable at every single step, every single round, something different can happen. And even then, the big question, the big thing that everybody says, they want fan access. Any ticket you buy can get you back into the pits to watch those guys work. And even now, there's a bit I can see of a increase of fan interest going into NHRA even for 2023. From your guys' perspective, as someone who's down on the ground and someone who's within the media, for both of y'all, just kind of talk about where you see the future of drag racing being at, and where NHRA stands with the Fox deal and everything else on the way that they can improve, where they can be at in the next few years to improve it, to bring themselves back to that 2000s boom. Because I can start to see a little bit that the fan interest is there. It's like a kettle pot ready to explode of another kind of era of boom of interest in drag racing. Because the only thing keeping it away is if they can get that streetcar aspect of like the World Cup, those Cletus. If you can get those YouTubers here, I think that if you can get those guys here to the moon, we're going to take off.
Yeah, I'm going to say this. This is my argument. I always, even back in, you know, high school and growing up, you know, people I went to school with that were NASCAR fans and everything, you know, like, you know, why are you drag race? I'm like, drag racing is the original form of motorsports, in my opinion. If you're going to race somebody on the street, you're going to drag race them. You're not going to say, hey, meet me at the Winn-Dixie parking lot and we'll do 10 laps around the grocery store. And then, you know, like, no, you drag race them. So I always say, if you can turn left, you're not going fast enough. That's the words I live by. I'm not dissing any other forms, but I'm just saying that. But the point is, like, I feel like, I mean, you look at the numbers NHRA had this year, viewership numbers. I mean, they had outstanding TV numbers from this year. Sellout crowds. I mean, Maple Grove was huge, and there were other races they had. And I want to say this, you know, going back to Indy, not to make this an Indy show, but we had 25 top fuel cars show up, you know, and I will say this. I think our economy is not quite the best we've ever had, you know, at the time, but yet you got people wanting to come out and race. You know, you got 800 plus cars on the property, including all the sportsman cars. Look at the A fuel cars, and I'm going to pick on that particularly at the moment. But you've got so many people wanting to get their feet wet in A fuel now, and they all want to, you know, step up. I feel like with what we've got right now, with people they're getting involved in racing, or they're stepping up, or they're investing for the future, I think drag racing's hot right now. And there's so much there that will back that up, you know.
Yeah. And I think just to add to it is just, you know, having these younger kids, these younger racers that are coming up from AFU and stuff like that, getting up into the bigger ranks and able to connect with the younger fans. You know, I think that's where it all comes down to is grabbing that younger audience. And I feel like drag racing is perfect for what the young kids today want. You talk about these TikToks or Instagram reels. They're quick, fast, and easy that these kids watch. And what is drag racing? Quick, fast, and easy. 4 or 5 seconds down the racetrack and you're done. So I think, you know, what the NHRA brings to the table is perfect for what young kids want. It's just got to get, you know, kids. Because personally, for me, I'm not per se a car guy. Like I never worked on cars, but I love to watch racing. You know, so I was trying to, you know, get those kids to actually like racing again, like they did 10, 20 years ago. If that makes sense.
I would agree with that.
And then Kellen, because the question I brought up is kind of like the future of drag racing of where it's at. Because the way I see it is, again, this is a ticking time bomb. As soon as they find that thing that can attract that younger audience to want to come out to a racetrack or even tune on to a TV and watch on Fox, as soon as they can figure that out, it's almost guaranteed that I can see it going to the moon. Just with the interest, it's just finding a way to light that fuse. Just kind of, in your opinion, where do you see that at?
Right. And well, first of all, thanks for the invite. Apologies on my tardiness tonight, but it's the holiday season. I'm bouncing from event to event to event, whatever. And if the lights get too distracting, let me know. I could change the lights on the hat and whatever when and if we need it. But yeah, I think it's a great thing to get the young minds into the sport. We need the young minds into the sport just due to the fact that you know, fresh ideas, fresh everything from top to bottom. Every sport goes through this. I mean, we just saw it, you know, over the last, 10 or 15 years with the NFL with there's a whole new crop of young quarterbacks that are aces right now in the NFL and that stuff that are great. Major League Baseball as well. The talent is starting to rotate through again with another great cycle. And you know what? NHRA, we're getting great young drivers and all of the the classes and stuff like that. I think that it's great as well to get personalities out there as well. Like I see we got McKaylin in with the stream today. Hello, McKaylin. Hope everything's doing well down there. My buddy Darren Williams Jr. is here too. So hey, there we go. Will, what you guys are doing this year, top notch as well. From seeing the car out at Indy and the whole 95 Larry Dixon throwback and getting involved with him and everything was just superb stuff. It was awesome to see. So, fresh ideas, fresh everything coming across the sport finally, it's good stuff. So
I'd have to
hold on real quick. Hold on. I'm sorry. You just mentioned the 95 scheme. The parachute fell out. Bob Vandergriff had him covered, and the parachute fell out of half track, and Larry Dixon went around him. Oh my goodness!
Let it go.
Oh, Larry had him.
Didn't Larry cut a whole shot in that round anyway? So it was going to be awfully hard for Bob to make up the deficit. But
I was rooting for Larry, but I'm just saying the parachute fell out of half track. Like, wow, it's crazy.
This is kind of the other thing that I wanted to bring up too, and something else. We go back to that top 10 article that Auto Week did, and there's something in there that there's one thing in there that I agree with, but I can also diverge in it too, and that's sports representation. Because you talk about the car community, people who love cars. You see what Cletus is doing. He has a freaking El Camino that can pull 200 miles an hour in a quarter mile. You go into a sportsman paddock, and this is something that I said. It's something. When David Land went there, the only thing he wanted to do was walk around the pro categories. He wanted to see the fuel cars. He wanted to see the pro stocks and the pro stock bikes. And I told him, no, what we're going to do is we'll walk around the pros, but I'm going to take you over to the other side of there, and we're going to walk top end to all the way over to the bottom and cover that entire pro sportsman category. And I think this highlight for him, one of the highlights of the weekend, was seeing a guy running a Ford Probe, because that was the car he ran. That he drove in high school. His first car was a Ford Probe. In your guys' perspective, with Will having competed in the sportsman category, you talk about the top fuel alcohol. Just talk about what I call the hidden gem and what fans need to be doing, because I think even I can attest that I messed up when I was going there the first few years, and I didn't pay attention too much to the sportsman. But Just talk about that hidden gem of why fans need to go pay attention, because once the fuel cars are gone, they're out. But there's so much more that fans need to pay attention to, because there's so many cool classes that are part of the NHRA that are there on any given weekend.
All the sportsman stuff is really cool, and like, I think like somebody said, I don't remember who it is, but NHRA has the highest participation of any sport. Like, sure, you can look at NASCAR or Formula One, and they've got F2, F3, F4, all the way down to F20 or whatever. But NHRA, anybody can get into, from literally a 5-year-old. You can put them in a junior dragster, and you could have anybody run a super comp car or super gas car or bracket race or any of that stuff. And I think once more people see that, then it's like with NASCAR, not everybody can go out each weekend and go race a cup car or whatever. But with NHRA, you can take your street car out to the track for the streetcar nights or whatever you have going on close to you. It gives everybody an opportunity to do it. And that's something that a lot of other forms of racing don't have. And I think that's the biggest thing of sportsmen that needs to be shown or featured, because in reality, this is the only kind of motorsport where literally anybody can do it. You can take your street car out to the track and bracket race.
I think most people, your casual fans are going to look at your pros that are running Top Fuel, Funny Car, Pro Stock, and they're going to assume they started there, and that's not the case. As Michaela mentioned, there's a class all the way down from junior dragsters. I competed in junior dragsters for 10 years from start to finish. And I went to Frank Hawley's school and spent all my money in my savings account. Instead of going on a senior trip when I graduated, I went to Frank Hawley's school. But drove a super comp car, super gas car, and I bracket raced and did sportsman racing, drove a pro mod car and everything. So you mentioned why, about people, like why they should focus on sportsman classes and everything. All of your pros, predominantly, they come from those sportsman classes, whether it be super comp, super gas, top dragster, top sportsman, comp eliminator. Comp eliminators has built some of the best pro stock drivers that have ever let the clutch out, So, you go back and look at those classes and you follow them, and I assure you, within the next few years, you're going to see some pros in the Camping World Series that came from the Lucas Oil Dry Racing Series. And like I mentioned earlier about, my tenure in Top Alcohol Dragster, a fuel car specifically, I did 4 seasons, and I had every intention of trying to get into a top fuel car or a fuel funny car. I know those are two totally different animals, but procedurally they are almost identical. So with that being said, you look at a lot of the people who run in Top Alcohol Dragster and A fuel cars, they are looking to make the step up into top fuel or nitro funny car or whatever the case may be. I think it's really important that people pay attention to who are in those sportsman classes, because they'll see them work their way up to the pros. And if you really study the pros that are out there, you'll see that they came from those, lower class rankings where every, Joe Blow can compete, and like McKellen said, NHRA, there's a class for you. There's a class for you based on your skill set, your interest, your budget. We have it.
I think NHRA does need to do a better job, though, of at least explaining to the casual fan of just how sportsman racing works as far as like index and class and all this stuff. I think just need to do a little better job on that end. But I think for the most part, like 90% of sportsman racers are just everyday guys like us. Like, they don't have big money. They're the most relatable. They go back to work on Monday after they race. On Monday, they go back to work to their restaurant or their landscaping business or whatever business they have. And then also it's just, I've noticed that whenever you walk up to a sportsman driver in the pits, like after they run, they are genuinely so happy to do an interview. Like they will take whatever they're doing, they will stop whatever they're doing, and they will take the time out to do an interview with you because they're just genuinely happy to have some type of attention. So I just think they're very, very relatable and just very cool people in general, cool guys and gals, and I think they do deserve a little more attention than what they get.
They have heart, they have passion, and they have dedication to drag racing. And that is me. I'm a sportsman racer at heart myself. I've just been fortunate to, try to keep climbing the ladder. But that's who I am. And you're 100% right that, how they are.
And that kind of goes back into the whole thing. You talk about like the heart and the grit to want to be out there and do that. And that's just kind of the whole point with sportsmen. In my opinion, it is the absolute lifeblood of what the NHRA is. Because if there's no national event weekend going on at your track, 9 times out of 10, you can go out there to that racetrack and you'll hear one of those classes rip it down that racetrack. I remember you'd be in the peak summer heat of July. It's almost 99 degrees. You could drive down Ronald Reagan Parkway alongside IRP, and you'll hear those junior dragsters ripping. They don't have a week off. If there's not a national event going on, you'll find those guys out there, and they'll drive from 3 states over just for the opportunity to compete at any level within NHRA. And in my opinion, without them, they wouldn't be here. So to any fan that might watch this later on and decide to go to an NHRA race, take 5 minutes. Well, it's going to take you about 30 minutes. Walk up and down those pits and just go look at those cars, because you'll find something that you love. I went in there with no idea what to find, and I ended up starting something that a lot of people within the media center got on board with the wagon gang thing. Any station wagon I could find within that lot, it was going on Twitter. You'll find something, I guarantee you.
And you know what's cool is they are professional sportsman racers. Like not everyone who competes in the sportsman classes want to be a pro. They're dedicated to their classes. I mean, it's cool seeing the old guys in their Levi shorts or their khaki pants with their straw hats on, and they're diehard super stock people. You know what I mean? There's like know what I'm saying? Right. There's a stereotype for that, and it's so cool. And I'm not making fun of them. I think it's awesome. Comp Eliminator is one of my favorite classes out there because literally any classic car, dragster door car, any combination, 4, 6, 8 cylinders, turbo, nitrous, naturally aspirated, there's a class in comp for the gearheads of any kind. I think that's one of the most underrated but yet coolest classes out there. And I think we all in NHRA, we all got to do a better job at promoting those classes, but those are the classes that help build what we have in the pros.
Hey, I'd agree with that. I do agree with that. But my laptop is about to die, so I'm going to go before it boots me out. Thank you guys for having me on, and hopefully I can join again at some point.
All right, and then quickly before you leave, though, just one thing. For anybody here who might not know who you are real quick, just give them somewhere to follow you so that way they can follow along with what you do.
I'm Kellen Haddock. I run the YouTube page Haddock Automotive, following Terry Haddock racing around with all our Nitro adventures. I recently started driving Nitro myself, and this weekend, actually, we're going to be taking this car out again and making some more hits. So that video will be up probably next Monday. So check it out on YouTube at Haddock Automotive.
Absolutely, man. All right.
Thank you guys for your time,
man. Good luck, bud.
All right.
Best of luck, Michaela.
Thank you.
All right. Then just going back in there, you talk about going and walk around the sportsman paddock and you see all those guys. I think the thing that really took me away was I remember walking about midway up, and there's a small section of the road where I think part of the road course ends and it merges on with the back half of the utility roads. And it was just lined with all these Hemi cars, like whether it was a Plymouth or a Barracuda or a Charger. I ended up nicknaming it Hemi Alley because it was just the entire road, even it wrapped around part of the curve of the road. It was just any Hemi that was on the lot somehow merged into that small area, and you could find all of them. Sakakuda was in there. Hills Hemi was in there. There was so many cool cars, and that was honestly probably one of the highlights of the whole weekend was seeing those guys run, because I think it was Thursday around afternoon. Those guys went out for qualifying, and me and Brody stood near on the back side of the gate across from the arch and just listened to those guys crank up and then pull into the staging lanes. And that was one of the highlights of the weekend. But it goes back to the whole thing. It doesn't matter what kind of car you like. There's a good chance that if you're walking through there, you'll find something that catches your eye, and then that's the car you're going to look at for the rest of the weekend.
The Hemi shootout is the best. I got to say that. I remember going to Indy for my first time, as I mentioned, was 2009. Even till now, that is like one of the highlights of Indy. Like, God, I love those things, you know? And that's part of what, in my opinion, what makes Indy. You know, that's a small piece of the puzzle that we've talked about that makes Indy what it is.
It's cool, right? Like you watch it on TV for so long, and then when you finally are in person, you get to see it in person. And they always run the final round at nighttime, right before the Nitro cars.
Yeah.
It's always cool. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I have yet to make it down there, but that's going to be a bucket list event when I do get a chance to go down there. I want to check out the Hemi shootout for sure, and I just immerse myself in all the lead up activity because, you know, for the newbies watching and whatever, Indy, it's not a Friday, Saturday, Sunday deal. They start racing Wednesday afternoon, right? And then it's all weekend long, right up to Labor Day Monday. So that's almost 7 straight days of drag racing, which is insane. So.
Hey, I was going through a national dragster. I was at Jason Rupert's shop with Les Mayhew like a few weeks ago, right? And I was looking at the old national dragster from back in the 80s. You know, they used to get 6 sessions back in the day. It wasn't just 5. They got 6 back in the day. It was crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. They had one on Thursday, one on Friday.
Boy, we could have used that this year.
Especially with the rain out. That was the thing. Is like you're talking about like when it was on Sunday, there was a rain out in Q5. It was like it kind of depends who you ask, because there was about maybe 6 to 8 drivers who told you, no, there was 5 rounds. We had 5 of them. But like for the rest of them, it was like, no, we only got the 4. Man, it goes back to the whole thing was having that whole week when I scheduled out how I was going to go to that. It was like, oh, well, the obvious is like, oh, you go there, start Friday, and you leave Monday. But it's like, no, that's 5 days. I flew out there on the Monday, got ready on Tuesday, and then by Wednesday at 9 o'clock, we were sitting in the grandstands watching sportsman qualifying on the racetrack and then just walking around. Half the pro teams hadn't even arrived yet. And that's honestly one of the nicest days of the week is because of the fact it's quiet, it's really relaxed and laid back. You can do just about anything your heart desires within what the track will let you do. But it's like, it is such a laid back time because the seriousness of the event hasn't really taken fold yet. And you can just walk that sportsman paddock and everyone just kind of starting to set their tents up for the weekend. But it's like, man, if you're ever going up to the U.S. Nationals, you got to take the time out. Go for the full week. Enjoy those 5 days because it is some of the 5 best days of racing you'll find within that state.
And some of the coolest racing you'll see, like you said, before the pros even hit the track, is the class eliminations for Superstock. I mean, I set up there. I was there the last couple of years. You talk about, I mean, we would leave Bowling Green for the divisional when we were on Top Alcohol and go straight to Indy. And I'd sit at Indy for like 3 days until they'd let us park, you know, on Tuesday or whatever, 2 days, whatever it was. And, you know, get there, put the awning up, and then I'm there for 2 more days till the rest of the team shows up. But watching class there, that was really cool, you know. A lot of good racing.
And this goes back into another thing too. We talk about more representation within the sports paddock to get fans to want to be interested in that. But it also happens within the pro ranks. It's something that I noticed a lot of. It's something that I noticed anyways, but especially at Indy. When the fans realize that the fuel cars are over, the thing that I call the mass exodus begins, and you just see the traffic jam on the stairs going all the way down, and fans just leave. And I remember sitting there around one, looking around, I was like, where are you people going? You're about to miss the best 2 classes of the entire event take full. Just for the people who might watch this later on, explain to them, even if you don't compete in it, anybody who might not be fully invested into it, why should people care about Pro Stock and Pro Stock Bike? Because in my opinion, those are the 2 top classes that you can probably watch to be guaranteed you're going to find somebody who might get a whole shot or have an upset. Remember, Don Torno beat the first round driver in the first race of the almost the entire event for them. Just talk about why should people watch the Pro Stock categories.
gear banging, door slamming, pro stock, burnout. I mean, it's the best. Closest racing out of all 4 classes. And you mentioned Ron Tornow. He beat Angel round 1, right? Because I believe Angel qualified number 1.
Sleeping.
Yeah, nah. Pro stock and pro stock motorcycle is amazing. I think it just comes down. Of course, the hardcore fans are going to stay in the stands. I think it's more so the casual fans. I mean, after you see 12,000 horsepower dragsters, it kind of slows down a little bit. So I understand it's more the casual fans, but us hardcores, no, you stay in the stands for pro stock or pro stock motorcycle because you're going to see great close racing all the way through. So, but like I said, door slamming, gear banging, pro stock cars, hearing them go through the gears going down track. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, both those classes too. It's the old adage, win on Sunday, sell on Monday with these classes. Like literally, you have different manufacturers. Like it's happened in the past with Pro Stock, and it's definitely happening in Pro Stock Bike where, Suzuki will send a part for the guys running Suzuki to test. And then, 6 months down the line, you could see that same part or a modified version of it on sale at like a Suzuki dealer or something like that to be put on somebody's street bike. It's real life R&D right in front of your eyes in a heads up, no holds barred, no BS competition, basically with both those classes, and even the same going down the line with more of the door car sportsman classes, like your competition eliminators, your super gases, and so on and so forth. They don't have the noise or the allure, I guess, of the nitro classes and that stuff. But yeah, pro stock bike, you always on Sunday, and even Saturday with a inflated field at a race. If you have like 18 cars or 20 cars or 18 bikes trying to get into 16 spots, you're going to want to sit down and watch that final qualifying because people will be doing some stuff to get into the show sometimes, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, and that's all the fun of it, right? So,
what's crazy cool about pro stock and pro stock bike is, in top fuel and fuel funny car, it's a matter of like power management. You've got way more power than you can use, and it's all about controlling it. And anything with the title that has pro stock in it, whether it's bikes, cars, or the old pro stock trucks back in the day, it was all about finding a couple of horsepower, 4, 5, 10, you know what I mean? It was just, these guys, these teams, they race on Sunday, they get back to the shop, and then they're dynoing, and they're just trying to find every little bit of horsepower they can. And I think that's a 180 from where we're at with the fuel racing, but there's a different respect there. Yeah, they're not making 10, 11, 12,000 horsepower, but they're doing people don't understand the trick techniques and the trick parts and everything these pro stock guys have to try to get just take some rotating weight off their valve train or whatever to ultimately give them a little more power. The thinnest oil they can do, can run or whatever, and it's like there's such a respect there for that type of racer, and in the rules package they have and just the restrictions that they have, to see them go out and run like they do. I mean, like you had mentioned earlier, Darren, about Karen running 660s down in Gainesville on the pro stock motorcycle. I mean, I figured at some point that would happen, but I don't think I would have thought it would have happened as quick as it has. I don't know. I mean, that's 0.3 of a second from when Andrew Hines went 699 or 698 in Gainesville in 05. So. Yeah, that's been 17 years, but 3 whole tenths of a second, I mean, it's crazy, considering the rules haven't changed that much,
But Will, so coming in, the national record was a 672. I mean, not just they obliterated that this year. I can't tell me how many people have dipped below that 672 this year. It was crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
They picked up so much performance this year.
Yeah. Gainesville is going to be really cool and really interesting this year. There's no question. Being the season opener, Gainesville's a fast track. If the weather's right, I mean, it proved that this year, but I'm saying, hey, if we do it again, I think we're going to see multiple records broken there again.
And that also ties into another thing. if you remember, we keep talking about how this has basically been an Indy recap, but one of the big headlines of news from that weekend was what was announced for the season onward was that Phillips Connect Mission 300. I'm tracking that every time a run's done. The immediately first question is, I don't care how fast you went. I want to know what was that 8th mile. We had a couple times when Brittany smashed that track record at Indianapolis on both ends. I was immediately looking over. I was in the Fox booth with Brian and Tony as they were calling the call-out races. And they were in the middle of doing a take when that run happened. And then as soon as we hear Alan go, whoa, and then immediately they both stop and look at their timing screens. And they both like, we had to do that again. Brittany just shattered the track record on both ends. And I'm looking at over on Brian's screen. It's like, what's the 8th? 298. It's like, damn it. It almost was broken right then and there.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. It's just, you talk about records being broken. Just the thing you got to remember, going into Gainesville, that record, it hasn't been claimed yet. There's still someone that needs to break that 300. And if Gainesville's the track, heck, what a way to start a season if someone could smash the record and then also gain the bonus from being the Mr. 300 as well as that prize pool they got going on for that thing.
Yeah, for sure. I got to tell you, when we were at Indy, once again, I have to make it a recap. We were going up for Q1, and like all of us guys, when whoever brought the qualifying order sheet around, that shows, what lanes we were going to be in and everything. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't the Phillips deal, didn't that come out like that day or something? They announced
it was the day prior, if I remember.
Day prior, okay. So what was funny is we're first car out, on a single, and so when all of us text everybody, that way everybody on the team had the run sheet. I forgot which one of our guys was like, "Hey, we're first car out. You remember they got this 300 mile?" Larry just kind of like shakes our head, but it's like, "Hey, boys, we got the first shot at this," and we just made a joke about it because it's kind of funny. It's like, "Hey, we got the first shot. We might as well throw it all out there and see if we can run 300 today." But it's crazy to see. I was down in Gainesville when Kenny Bernstein ran 300 to the quarter back in 92, 301.70. And it's like, wow, what a milestone that was. And everybody says, oh, that's the last biggest milestone in drag race. Now going half the distance at almost the same speed. It's crazy. Like who would have thought back then that you'd run 300 miles an hour to the 8th mile, which is half the quarter, and you're just barely doing it in the quarter back then,
So I guess as we get closer to wrapping this up, we've been going on for 2 hours. We talk about how crazy this season is, kind of in all of your guys' perspective, having followed this sport a hell of a lot longer than I have. I have a lot more to learn when it comes to this. But for the more longtime fans that have been loving this sport, kind of just summarize what this season has been in terms of the drag racing community, because even in terms of a casual fan, this has been a season to watch and a season to remember, but just kind of summarize it in your own words what this kind of a year has been, because this is honestly one of the craziest years of racing I've seen in my personal life.
I really think that the 2022 seasons has been one for the books, and I really mean that. COVID was kind of a reset for all of us, and that was, we're past that point. And I really feel like this year was the year of NHRA drag racing getting back to what it was. I think from a competitive standpoint, we saw most competitive action in all the classes across the year. We've seen record performances. We saw sellout crowds. We saw record TV ratings. We've seen new sponsors, new teams come into the sport. It can always be better. No matter how good it is, it can always be better. But I think where we are as as a whole, I think this is one of the best seasons we've seen in a long time. Like I said, there can always be more cars, there can always be more fans, blah, 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 but I think with time that'll happen. But I think in comparison to where we've been in the last few years, I think 22 is a great year, and I think 23 is going to shape up to be even bigger than 22, in my opinion.
I echo everything that Will's just said. I mean, you talk about it, records on the racetrack, record TV ratings, sellout crowds, great racing all around. I mean, new teams, new car owners. I mean, I'd say 25 cars at Indy. I mean, just that luster. The 2022 was like that first year officially out of COVID. 2021 kind of, but you still saw some of the after effects of COVID in 2021. 2022 was like that first year kind of out of COVID back to regular NHRA drag racing. And so it was just great to see. And I think 2023 is going to one up that even more. And just for me personally, 2022 was special is because it was a season. It was the most races I ever attended in person in a season. I went to so many races this past year. Before I was ever in this industry, I would only go to Pomona and Vegas. And so be able to go to Houston, Charlotte, the U.S. Nationals, Sonoma, all these races this year was so crazy. And then to get my gig with Competition Plus, I can't thank Bobby Bennett enough for that opportunity. So 2022 was a special year overall, just personally for me as well. And I'm looking forward to 23. It's gonna be a lot of fun. But before we leave, I want to give the audience a quick trivia question. So we're talking about first the 300 to the 8th. And I know Dave knows this, so I don't want him to answer, but if he's still in here. But who was the first one to go sub 3 seconds to the 8th mile in Top Fuel history? If you can answer that for me. And what year, who and what year was it before we get out of here?
We'll give them time to answer that while they ponder that one. But, Kelly, even from your eyes, what's this season been like for you? Well, we'll watch the chat and see who's going to be the first one to guess this.
I'll put a guess in for the answer first. Was it Brittany at all?
What'd you say?
Was it Brittany?
Oh, no.
Okay.
The answer. Oh, no, it wasn't Brittany. No.
Okay.
No.
So probably
first,
sooner than that. That was my guess,
first,
but anyway.
Yeah. So first
that's what I would have said.
Yeah. So just the way that car's been running. And by the way, they are going to be a monster car again coming up at 23, which is another bold going out there production. I know out there, right? But this to me, 2022 to me, the entire season felt like your classic start of a decade trend-setting season. We've seen it. The longtime fans will remember seasons like 89 or 90 that were seasons that kind of helped shape the sport a little bit and help set the sport in a direction where it was going in the 90s. Whereas 2000, 2001 kind of same type of deal. 2010, 2011, 2012, that era. This one, 2022, felt like it's going to go down in the books as one of those seasons across the line. We've seen a lot of people coming into the sport with, just massive reputations and budgets and you name it. Like if you would have told me 10 years ago, a fellow like Tony Stewart would be involved in NHRA drag racing, I would have been like, is he just trying to one up Kurt Busch from the Pro Stock deal or what's going on? Right. But no, he's in, with both feet. He loves, racing the cars, running the funny car and the Top Fuel car. And he loves the sport. And so much so that we actually, saw him behind the wheel of an A Fuel car towards the end of the year. So that's, that's huge right there to get somebody of that ilk and that stature involved with the sport. And it just felt like once that news hit, it felt like it was just a trickle down effect of just big. It just had the whole grand nature, the bigness of the series. It kind of jumps ahead to the forefront and that stuff. And in 23, so many other questions coming up, like how is the Factory X class going to be received by the fans and that stuff? Is the monster 8th mile speeds and that stuff, like how long is it going to take to get to that 300? Are we going to get it at Gainesville, or are we going to be waiting 2 or 3 or 6 or 8 or 20 races or something like that until somebody does it, right? I hope it's not 20 races. I hope somebody gets it out of the park and done early. But yeah, 2022 to me will go down as a really trend-setting year. It's too bad Diamond P isn't doing the year in review tapes anymore, because I definitely ordered that one for sure and keep it in my collection for sure. But that's how I look at it. So
who knows? Maybe if Dave's still in the chat, maybe he can put something like that, because we know he has all the VHS tapes together to make something like
Dave,
that.
Get on that.
Let you guys do. Hey, Darren, you did that NHRA Today throwback back at the finals. Maybe you guys can figure out something to do during the off season and get you guys set up for March.
There may be something in the works already. You never know. Stay tuned.
There's a lot of headlines coming out from this stream.
Stay tuned.
All right. So I guess second last question, 2023, running into a new season. You guys talk about how trend setting, how this has been a season that can help be the thing that plants the foot to move the sport forward. Heading into 23, what do you guys hopefully expect to see? What are something your predictions for all four of the top classes, or even the sportsman classes, if you guys have any predictions for those? And then along with that, something that I would like to end it with this. What's something do you guys want to see return? Maybe some, or be added to the weekends. For instance, this bug was put in my ear a while ago. The No Bull Showdown. If we could see that brought back, because again, we have that Mr. 300 challenge. I think something that would really put a fire under their butts to try and get that is if you brought back to see who's faster again now, the Nitro funny cars or the Nitro few cars, and who's going to see who's the fastest dude. I think with how fast those guys are now, it would be a hell of a lot more exciting to see what they could do now compared to what they were at back in 99 and 2000.
Yeah, but I got to say something about that. I think that would be so cool to bring that back. I thought that was one of the coolest things NHRA ever did. Mm-hmm. One of my childhood heroes was Al Hoffman, and he was the tough guy. You know, he was rough, tough, and he could drive the crap out of that fuel funny car. And I thought it was so cool in Bristol. You know, when he'd go to stage the car, he'd blip the throttle when he staged to try to throw off the other guy, you know, in the top fuel car because of the staggered tree. You know, and I'm thinking, like, how cool is that? Like, you think about, okay, if we did that again, like who out of all the drivers now would try to do that? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, times are a little different, you know, like, but it was just some different racers back then, you know what I mean? But how cool would that be? Because I know there's several guys out there right now that probably would do that, you know. But I remember that. I just thought that was the coolest thing. That was a racer Al Hoffman was, you know. And to run the top fuel and funny cars together, I mean, man, that was so cool. I unfortunately wasn't able to be at that race, but I remember watching it on TV the day it happened and thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I would love to see it happen, and I'd love to be a part of it.
And bring back a John Force with the Superman paint scheme in '99 when he won that and beat again Bob Vandergriff in the final.
Bob Vandergriff, yep. Both tire smoking battle, but he out-pedaled.
Yep.
And that kind of just brought us back. Kind of give us your 23 predictions. What do you guys see going forward next season of what people can maybe what you think we can expect when the trailers unload at Gainesville back in March?
I think go ahead.
You go, Will.
Well, I think, as I mentioned before, we'll probably see multiple records broken in Gainesville. I really feel that way. I think over the course of the year, you're going to see that happen more. You got the shootout races, top fuel and funny car back with the Callout deal. Obviously, you got pro stock bike, you know, deal. I think that's going to be really exciting. I think you're going to see more teams come out. I think you're going to see some new blood out there. And pretty sure you're going to see Will Smith back out there in top fuel at some point.
Oh, excellent.
And I'm hoping more than one appearance in 23.
I was going to ask that too.
Good.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So working on some stuff. Fingers crossed. I think everything will work out and you'll see me out there more. So I'm hoping to kind of mix it up out there a little bit and get some more laps and just keep living the dream.
Can we get an Al-Nabi scheme if you do that?
That would be cool, right? You know what's cool about that? You had mentioned that earlier, but like I said, I worked on the Pro Mod deal, and I was actually Shannon Jenkins and Mike Castellano, they were the first teams in the U.S. where Al-Nabi got involved with them with the shoot. So it all started here in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Matter of fact, you know. So then a couple years later, you know, they went fuel racing and got Larry and Dale Worsham, and so it's you know, that was kind of the building moments between me and Larry, you know, over the years of getting closer, you know, was through that. But yeah, that would be pretty cool, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
Okay, so this goes back to my trivia question since we're just on it. So the first guy to go sub 3 seconds to the 8th mile was Gary Scelzi, Houston Fall, 1999. He went 4:48 on that pass. Went 4:48. Okay. The only reason why that's connection to what we're just talking about was Dale Worsham was the second one to do it in 2011 at Reading when he went 373 and lost on that whole shot to Spencer Mass in the final at 377. So it took 12 years later for somebody to go sub 3 seconds to the 8th mile a second time. But Gary Scelzi was the first one to do it in 1999.
That's insane because remember, harkening back to the chase for 200 with the Pro Stocks, the 500 cubic inch Pro Stocks, didn't Warren Johnson run 190 in 86 and then finally broke 200 in 97? So again, that's an 11-year period. Sometimes it bees that way, it's it all depends on, if we're getting quantum leaps, I should say, and in performance and that stuff, or if we're just, kind of inchworming our way to, the eventual goal, right? So it all depends.
There you go.
And then to wrap that up too, I think one thing I've started seeing some videos I recommended on YouTube. If there's one thing that I would love to see maybe added to the U.S. Nationals that's already not on there, Pro Stock Burnout Challenge. I think that would be an absolute. Fans love burnouts. The number one catchphrase that me, Brody, and Kevin were saying throughout the entire weekend was, "You like burnouts?" We kept screaming the Alan Reinhart line from the Vegas burnout that Kramer did when he smoked up the track. I think if you could bring that back, that would bring a whole lot of interest within the Pro Stock categories again. Because again, if there's one thing that fans love is seeing a big old smoke show, and that's something that those Pro Stock drivers do the best. So as we wrap this up, just quickly on your way out, just kind of tell people, where can we find you? What are you guys up to? And what do you guys have planned for 2023? And where can they follow you along to watch that?
Will Smith Motorsports. I've got it there in my tag. You can look me up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. That's my social handles. WillSmithMotorsports.com. 2023, working on securing some races there and some, finalizing my plans for the upcoming year. Really excited about that. Plan to be out there some in 2023, and stay tuned. Check out my social channels and my website for updates there. And as soon as we get everything finalized, we'll post it out and hopefully be ready to kick the year off.
For sure.
Excellent. Yeah. You can check me out, tinyurl.com/dragfiles, or just at Kellen Nitro, all one word, on Twitter. I post my links up through there. Yesterday, I put up a yearly tradition on my channel. It is annually my most viewed video. It is the Pro Modified Supercut. What I do is I combine all of the Pro Mod highlights from all of my Pro Mod videos and that stuff that we have with the West Coast Pro Mod Association up here in Western Canada, and put together a highlight reel of sorts. But the cool thing is each year it gets progressively and more progressively longer. So this year we have a 5-hour long Pro Mod video up on Nitromaniac TV's Drag Files right now. Went live yesterday. You can throw it on in the back if you're working if you have a monitor in your garage or something like that, and you want some drag racing ASMR maybe, or just to add to the ambience or whatever. Or if people are just looking for a certain event or whatever, it's all chaptered and all notarized and that stuff. It's good to go. So had a lot of fun putting that together. New Year's Day, I will have the wildest moments that our cameras caught in 2022, and a little bit prior to them as well, up there. So kind of, I don't want to call it a wreck compilation, but be that as it may, it is what it is. And coming up in 2023, still trying to finalize a few things and that stuff. We'll be out at a few races, but it'll be great. So yeah, there you go. Play that 5-hour video throughout your entire school day. Make sure you get the ads in there too and that stuff. That helps with the old YouTube revenue and that stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's all good.
You can find me on Instagram at American Hot Rod ENT, American Hot Rod Entertainment on Facebook. I'm also the assistant editor of competitionplus.com. Got a really cool video. Eddie Hill, 1988. I'm going to be covering and recapping that season. So check out for that video coming soon to Competition Plus YouTube page. Got some other cool videos in the works. But yeah, just follow me there. And if you want to talk basketball, hit me up. I love basketball too. So if you ever want to talk some hoops, just hit me up and we can talk basketball. But other than that, hit me up there.
And then I also want to ask you too, are you going to Gainesville? Because we have that Slurpee deal going on. You're going to take me to get an actual Slurpee that you Californians got. I'm going to take you to pizza and you go out to Indy again. Are you going to Gators Nationals?
I'm trying to get to Gainesville, and if I get to Gainesville, I will introduce you to a blueberry and cherry icy. Yeah, for sure.
Deal. And also, well, I know you're from Tuscaloosa. I know you're a Bama native. I share your pain with as a fellow roadside fan of what went on with that top 4 selection. And it's going to prove TCU is going to get smashed on New Year's Day, and it's going to prove me everything right. So, again, thank you guys for showing up. Thank you guys for being along. Anybody that was watching this, thank you for being part of this. Again, the whole thing, this entire year has been absolutely insane. This entire has been a whirlwind. The fact that starting off with a small channel with less than 100 subscribers, almost less than 200 subscribers, now 3,000, and the idea that I get to beat all you guys, and we're doing this in the span of 6 months has been something that I never thought was going to be possible, let alone so quickly. I was thinking maybe down the road, 3 years later, something like this would be a thing, but here we are 6 months afterwards. I mean, heck, the fact that I have a video about to have 1 million views is something that just blows my mind, and it's not me trying to boast. It's just this year has been absolutely crazy, and it just goes to show. Awesome to meet you guys. Awesome to be a part of this community, to see here, especially on the ground level, because this sport's going to take off. And when that day happens, I'm glad I'm going to be a part of it to see it happen firsthand. And it just goes back. Thank you to the people at the NHRA for giving the opportunity. Thank you for you guys for taking the time to come out here. Thank you to anybody who sat there in the comments and watched. And, again, Mighty Mac 03, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can follow me there. If you want to see who my personal takes, you can follow me on the Twitter account. If you want to see purely drag racing content, go to the Facebook and the Instagram. You can follow me there. I know I haven't uploaded a video in a while. It's because I got this in the mail. So we got a new microphone, because I know that's been the thing everybody's been wanting to see, is me get better mic quality. So now we finally got that. So again, we already have the next video scripted. I'm going to start recording it here within a week or two, and then we'll get that out. And then from there on, aiming to be at Gainesville. I still got to put the application in for that. They're about to open that up here in a few weeks. And as soon as that happens, we get the green light for that. I will hopefully see all of y'all down there in Gainesville, especially all 4 of you up here in the booth, and especially McKellen, because the fact I haven't met him yet. And now that I have that connection, I'm going to find his ass when I get to Gainesville. But again, thank you for the absolute crazy year. Thank you for being a part of this channel. If you've been here since day one, thank you. If you've been here since 5 seconds ago, thank you. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share this video, follow all these guys down here, because again, these are some of the hardest working people you'll find either in the media center or in Will's Cave in the garages and the trailer. You're going to find some of the hardest working people here. Thanks for watching, and until then, I'll see you next time. Thanks you guys for watching.
Thank you very much.